Are we back? We back? Okay, Kermit Thorson's here. I'm sorry about that. There were some things on the screen that I wanted to be careful about, so I apologize. Let me do something real quick in the editor here. I didn't think that androgynous elderly person would bring something like that up. Here. Man or woman? Honestly, like man or woman, like it I literally can't tell. This happens all the fucking time. Both? True, both. They get mad? No, I ended before they got mad. All right, before we continue, I really gotta go to the bathroom again. I'll be right back. Dubsy, obviously cut this out. Okay, I'm back. Okay, sorry about all the confusion. Dubsy, cut out everything that included the spicy Google search. Obviously, did stream just start? No, stream's been going. Stream's been going. We just had a little hiccup. We had a spicy Google search. Brought up the tax files. Anyway,
staff or have a staff meeting, they should go around the room and ask everyone what their pronouns are. Katie, if that happened to you, what would you do?
I think political appointees, Bethany, great question, need to expect that they are going to be tested by.
My point in bringing this picture up, by the way, was like, yeah, I would ask this, like, you might have to ask this person, like, their pronouns. I've misgendered people before. Usually they're old. I think I've done it like twice. I've misgendered people before. So, like, if I misgender, like I've brought this point up before, if I misgender somebody and they correct me, I'm not gonna go, well, actually, I clunked you. Like, no, that's stupid. Like, no, you take the correction. You say, I'm so sorry, ma'am or sir. You know, like you apologize, okay? And you literally cannot tell whether this person is a man or a woman. I guarantee you.
Career staff the day they walk in. So that question, every political appointee should be prepared to deal with and answer, whether it's in a training. I don't think it'll take that long. It probably will be the first couple days on the job. So a political appointee is empowered. They are empowered because they are absolutely put in the position, whatever level it is, in order to implement the president's agenda. And that is the business of a political appointee and should be the business of all federal employees.
Literally say hello, their voices aren't androgynous. Okay, when I go up to somebody and say, hello, sir, and they go, actually, it's ma'am. And also, you don't know that. Their voices do get more androgynous as they get older. People's voices get, like, closer to each other as they get older sometimes. Not all the time, but it tends to happen more as people get older. Yes.
So the answer is simple. We're here to implement the president's priorities and agenda. We are not here to discuss pronouns.
The next topic is gender-affirming care. Gender-affirming care and what the Biden administration is promoting.
We're not here to discuss pronouns, but, like, if you want to refer to somebody properly, you have to know their pronouns.
Next topic is gender-affirming care. Gender-affirming care and what the Biden administration is promoting
since I shouldn't say it anymore. Gender-affirming care, here we go.
Especially as for parents. We need to be protecting.
As a nurse, I'm actually pretty well read on this one.
Our children.
I'm not usually well read on the stuff I cover.
Puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and permanent.
So here's the thing about puberty blockers. It's usually I just said I'm well read. Now I'm forgetting the name. The puberty blocker that's used is when they say that it's a sterilizing agent. It's only sterilizing if you give it in a high enough dose. Like the what is it? Not Prolon. It's I can't remember what the name of it is. Me being well read on the topic. I'm so bad at names, but it's used for precocious puberty. It's used all the time, and it's reversible. So if you put somebody on it and then take them back off, it doesn't, like, all the effects are reversed. Okay, Luprin, thank you, Luprin. They would give it to prisoners to chemically castrate them. Okay, and that is true. Okay, but they would give it in way higher doses than they give to kids. Obviously, it's just like if you waterboard somebody instead of giving them water. Like, or even better, you can literally drown yourself by drinking too much. Like drinking too much water. Did you guys know that? You can drink too much water and die from it. It has happened before. The dose makes the poison. So when they say this, they might as well be saying that, like, insulin can kill you. Or water can kill you. Or, it's just stupid.
Genital mutilation. That's what gender-affirming care is. No, it's not. Care at all. The idea that gender is fluid is evil.
And also gender-affirming care doesn't have to include anything to do with the genitals. It doesn't have to even touch that, okay? At all.
And it is a major initiative of the Biden administration. It's layered into each and every office, document, task force, and funding priority. Perhaps most commonly known are the changes to Title IX, giving institutions, schools, control over children and their gender preference, working against parents, mandating boys compete against girls. This is all done with words. Words matter. Change the words, change the culture. Now, Katie, I know that you've written several wonderful pieces on equity, and you've done a lot of research on this, and the Biden administration has infiltrated equity into everything. What are your thoughts on equity for the next administration?
Well, it's a little heart-stopping.
Equity's good.
It's going to take a lot to rewind where we are right now with this, with the left's definition of equity and how that's layered into all federal government documents. Roger Severino states it perfectly in the Project 2025 Mandate for Leadership book. Quote, under President Biden, the mission has shifted from promoting equity in everything we do, end quote, for the sake of, quote, populations sharing a particular characteristic, including race, sexuality, gender identification, ethnicity, and a host of other categories. And
hold on. Sorry, I was looking at something else. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. That's all good.
Gender identification, ethnicity, and a host of other categories. End quote. Equity no longer means all men are created equal, the cornerstone of our U.S. Constitution, but rather now mandates the government to dispense with unequal treatment in order to achieve what they believe to be equal outcomes.
Yeah, we shouldn't give more treatment to somebody like the patient that I take care of, who's literally like trach vent status, can't move at all by himself, you know. Like we shouldn't give unequal treatment to that guy. Like all men are created equal, so like we shouldn't give, you know, more healthcare to that guy than we give. Like this is what equity means. It means making the outcome as fair as possible, like as equal as we can. You know, giving people as equal, sorry, not the outcome, giving people as equal opportunity as we can. Okay. And in some cases that means, here, let me pull up a picture that explains it perfectly. There it is. Perfect. This is what they want. All men are created equal. And this is what leftists want. Equity. Okay. You give people what they need. Okay, this is stupid. This guy doesn't need the box. This is equity. This is what the leftists mean by equity. This is perfect. Okay? So yes, sometimes it's to make an equal outcome. Because the outcome here is that they can all see the fucking game.
This creates divisiveness, not equality. There is no unification under these principles.
Thank you so much, Saki Tanuki, for another 5 Tier 1 gifted subs. Technically, the right gender fluid can kill you. It is possible to drown from cunnilingus. Yeah, true. It can kill you. That's true. It would take a lot to do that. Well, I guess it wouldn't take that much, but you know, we're not going to get into the specifics on that. They don't know that though. Dry ass P word. True. Thank you again. Appreciate you. Always.
It is more of a competition of what class is more of a victim, so that particular class can receive the preferential treatment being handed out and mandated by the Biden administration. It's important to note that the very first executive order that President Biden signed just moments after his inauguration on January 20th of 2021 had to do with equity. The left applauded as Biden announced his #1 priority, which is advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities throughout the federal government. As part of that executive order, within 90 days, every single agency had to file an equity action plan with the White House. If you want to see or view what you will be up against, take a look at those plans. They're all online under the Office of Management and Budget. Since that time, 9 more executive orders have been executed by the Biden administration about equity. The latest to date is to further advance racial equity. This entails new positions and responsibilities to be embedded into every single agency and office in the federal government. And there is also a directive that all funding that is given out by the federal government prioritize unequal treatment of the American people. The noxious tenets of critical race theory and gender ideology.
Okay, if you treat an entire group of people unequally for most of your history, which is true, okay, black people in this country have been treated unequally for most of our history, you have to make up for that in some way. And sometimes that's going to look like unequal treatment, quote unquote. But yeah, no, like if there are, like, for example, they always like to bring up the DEI thing. If there's 2 people with equal qualifications and the only distinguishing factor is that one of them is black, and you will have like an all-white group of people already working for you, yeah, you should take the black person. You should take the black person because it seems unfair, but we're defaulting to the thing that has not been, that the opposite of what's been defaulted to in the past. It's reparations, exactly. Because right now, outcomes for black people are way worse than outcomes for white people. And they'll chalk that up to culture. If they're really mask off about it, they'll chalk it up to just inherent differences in biology. But at the end of the day, the reality is that black people have suffered more, okay? They've been treated unfairly. And so we have to make up for that by being a little bit unfair in the opposite direction. That's how that works. It's called reparations. It's called equity. That's a good thing. Equity is a good thing.
Should be excised from curriculum in every single public school in this country.
So Katie, this is a lot to absorb. So how do you suggest that we tackle the problem? I know you were the head of a grant office at DOJ and you had a lot of paperwork. What are your suggestions?
Well, I found that developing a process for each type of document was crucial to reversing the words and definitions from the Obama administration. Here's an overall strategy to implement. First, look for any OMB, that's the Office of Management and Budget, White House Office of Management and Budget, guidance. You'll want to instruct career employees that you, whatever level you are, you want to be informed of all OMB guidance and how it is being implemented internally. Oftentimes, careers will just get an OMB circular or an OMB advice, and then they just go along and they either ignore it or they don't put it in. You want to be involved in the process. You want to say, every single thing that comes in, I want to make sure that it is actually being implemented.
Seems
this
tedious.
can easily be handled at the senior advisor or even special assistant level.
How to identify and replace misguiding language. Look for OMB guidance. Instruct career employees that you want to be informed of all OMB guidance and how it is being implemented internally. Be aware of how career employees reporting to you are implementing the president's executive orders and OMB directives. Be involved in that process. That's not being very specific.
The second thing you need to do, and quickly, are look at guidance.
But basically that just means make sure that you're telling them, no, you can't actually help black people. You can't actually be in favor of equity. You know, you can't do that. Like, they're basically just telling you gunk up the process, right?
Documents. Now, I've talked about this in other trainings. Guidance documents are simply a federal career employee's interpretation of a statute, of an appropriation given by Congress, of a rule or regulation, and how it's going to be implemented. A guidance document is not binding. It is simply, in some ways, just their opinion. The problem with a guidance document is that it has a tremendous amount of authority, because if you are looking to an agency to find out what they're looking for your grant, or how your grant program will be implemented, or what rules they have around it, you're going to look at those guidance documents. They end up with a tremendous amount of authority. It really ends up being the career's agenda being forced onto the American people. A court is the only real institution.
It's not forced if, okay.
Institution that can give us
the people enforcing it were democratically elected.
Any kind of grant program, appropriation, or rule. So most likely, the Office of Management and Budget will come out very quickly with a plan to take down all the guidance documents that are currently up that reflect the Biden administration's agenda.
Okay, I'm bored. I think we've gotten the crux of this, right? Does anybody actually want to continue this? What else do they do? Violence against women. That could be interesting, I guess. But, like, I don't know. I'm getting bored. All right, we got the general idea. So, basically, this boils down to gunk up the process as much as you can for helping minorities. Don't be equitable. They just want bad things is basically what it comes down to. They want bad things. So, that's what I took from this. But yeah, that's the training video. So that's what they're using to propagandize, especially his background. Maybe I should solo continue this myself, especially his background noise, if you want to. It's so generic. It is really, like, it's the most boring way of propagandizing ever. And it's just, like, it's just the conservative talking points that they've already been doing. I don't think there's anything special about it. But it is important to note that this is what Donald Trump wants. So if you'd like this all to be implemented, feel free to vote for Donald Trump or sit out on the election. And if you don't want this to be implemented, vote for Kamala Harris. Yeah, brown shirt training, exactly. All right, I'm going to take another really brief break. I'm going to message the ancap that we're going to be talking to because it looks like they're ready. And we'll go from there. So give me just a little bit. Okay, I'm back. All right, so I have not heard back. They're in the waiting room, but I just DM'd them and I want to make sure that they're ready. So before I go and just pull them in, I'm going to wait for that DM back. And in the meantime, I think I'm gonna crochet a bit. Let's see. I can do something real quick. Hold on. I can show you guys how I made the eye on this real quick. Oh wait, hold on. Might be a false alarm. Never mind. Never mind. Oh, crochet lovers, get wrecked. They just DM'd back. The way music is awesome. Thank you. I'm always trying to add to it too. All right, let's do this thing. Alec is my favorite debate YouTuber. Thank you. That means a lot. I might just keep that in the recording. Hello?
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me good?
Yeah, I think I can hear you good. Chat, let me know if the audio is good on both of our ends. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing really good. So I saw some of your videos in the past. I actually agree with you on a lot of things, like regarding
Cool.
abortion. You know,
That's good.
basically all your social takes. But I was just kind of wondering, like, to what extent do you believe in the non-aggression principle?
Sure, just real quick before we get started, can you just give me your name and then just verify that you're over the age of 18, please?
Yeah, I go by ASY the best on Discord. I am over the age of 18, yeah.
All right, excellent. And then what was your question? I'm sorry.
And then the question was, like, to what extent do you actually agree with the non-aggression principle?
The non-aggression principle. You'll have to refresh me on what that is.
Like, the NAP is basically this concept that we don't have a right to initiate force on anybody.
I think in general I agree with that. I think that you only have the right to initiate force on somebody. Like, and it depends on like the level of force as well. The only reason you would initiate force on somebody is if they're like committing. So, like, if the alternative is that more people, like, I don't want to say more people would suffer, but like more people would have their autonomy taken away. I don't think it's okay to like take somebody's autonomy away. For instance, like if somebody else, like if one person's organs can save 5 people's lives, I don't think it's okay to enforce like that person to undergo death in order to save those other 5 people, if that makes sense. But I think in general that's a good principle. Yeah.
So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, ethically, you would prescribe more to, like, a consequentialist or utilitarian perspective on these issues?
In general, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure
So,
there are
I'm curious,
exceptions, but
what would the justification be for something like taxation to you?
taxation is what allows us to live in a society, basically. Like that's how we have roads, that's how we have libraries, it's how we like it's public funding. We elected a government in order to like our government owns the money anyway, right? So like our government gives us the money in order to keep an economy going and keep like free trade going, but ultimately the money belongs to the government. Like they can take it back at any point they want.
Did governments, like, invent the concept of money?
They own it, like they're the ones who print it. Without a government, your money means nothing.
Oh, I mean, in the past, for, like, most of human history, money was backed by commodities, and it
Sure.
was decentralized, and we had markets that functioned a lot like they do today, but with less, you know, boom bust cycles and all of these distortions that happen from central banking.
Yeah, but like now money, like I don't believe in money as a concept, basically. Like I just think that world, like I think there should be some kind of central unit of exchange for like, what's the word for like luxury purposes. Sure. in that sense, I believe that like money and monetary exchange can be a good thing, but like money is really just used as a gatekeeper in its current iteration to keep people from like having access to shelter and food and whatnot. So in that sense, I don't really believe in money.
Well, I mean, in its current iteration, I mean, basically every society in human history has had some form of money as an exchange value, just because otherwise we'd have to go around saying like, I will directly give you this for shelter, right? And then like what? So I'm guessing you're
Yeah,
not
but I just think
advocating
people
for like
like we live in a
barter
post-scarcity world.
society.
We live in a post-scarcity world. I think people should just have shelter. That
Wait,
should
what do
just
you
be
mean by
automatic.
scarcity?
I mean, like, we have more homes than we have people who don't have homes. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Everybody should have access to shelter.
I mean, I agree, but
Right.
when we say everybody should have access to shelter, I mean, well, what would your policy prescriptions be to achieve that?
Everybody gets a house.
Everybody gets a house. Like how?
Yes.
Like, does the government buy them a house?
Sure.
Right. So basically, you would say that like the government is legitimized in taxation because they can provide good things for people.
I mean, what else is the government's purpose?
I mean, originally the government was founded just to protect rights. That was the idea of like
And I believe in the right
the
to housing.
original. Okay, but like the right to housing, like it can't exist unless you infringe upon people's right to self-ownership and property.
Also,
Because to give them housing, the government has to allocate resources to do that.
yeah,
No, there's
they have the
no state in the
resources.
world they do, but they get these resources from their citizens. They don't just create it out of nothing.
Yeah, the
They're
agreement
just
is that
allocating resources for
think of
society.
the government is basically an employee. The government is like I want the government to be elected into office by the people and have like in its current iteration at least, like I don't know if I'm an anarchist or whatnot, but like in the short term, the government should have power over the people and have authority to like arrest people and allocate resources and such so that people who aren't part of the government can live their lives free of worry that they'll like not have a house over their roof over their heads or food to eat. I think that's a fair trade-off.
Okay, so I guess you just view it like completely consequentially, which makes sense.
Yeah,
Um,
basically.
but like in general, like if we were to partake in action that was aggressive, and then like I guess I don't see how you could justify it like after the fact. Like yes, I'm stealing from you, but after I steal from you, I am providing housing to these people. Like
You don't have to pay
that's
taxes
okay
to
to
the
you.
government. You can go live on an island, man.
I mean, that's not true. You have to pay taxes to the state. Like
No,
even
you can go. You can
if
go live on an island. You can do that right now.
I
You can
can
buy
go
an
live
island
on
and
an
go live on
island.
it.
Okay, so by that logic, we shouldn't attempt to fix any issue in our society. We should
I
just
didn't say
allow
that. I
like
said if you don't want to pay taxes, go live on an island,
that could be true for any issue.
such as.
I mean, if you say like I don't like the way that the U.S. government treats minorities, you could just say, well, I guess minorities should just go live in islands. Like it doesn't solve the issue.
No, I think that minorities should be treated equally and fairly. It's not.
Yeah,
I don't
obviously.
see. But the difference is, I don't see taxation as an issue. I see it as a necessity. The government needs resources in order to allocate resources.
Okay, so I mean, the obvious follow up to that is like, why is the government in particular better at allocating resources in the free market?
Because they were elected into office by people who trust them. Ideally.
Okay, so when you're a consumer, you're only looking at like the products that you actually like want/need, right?
Sure.
Do all like voters have the same wants and needs?
I think they all have the same basic needs. I think all people have very basic needs that are essentially the same. Yes.
Okay, and then do all voters like actually like take into account how needs might be different, like different parts of the country? Like, if I was
No.
a voter in like fucking Wisconsin, do you think I would care so much like if state housing had air conditioning, or not air conditioning, but like yeah, air conditioning for people in like Florida?
I mean, I don't think everybody agrees that everybody needs air conditioning, but I think people need air conditioning, and I think most people would agree that air conditioning is a necessity. I just don't see a better system than democracy. Like,
I mean, I think it's just so much information and like aspects of government. Like, you're not just voting based on like, oh, I want to receive like housing. Like, you're voting on like a million different issues. There's nobody that's perfectly informed on this. Even our legislatures, like in Congress, the amount of laws that they actually pass compared to the federal agencies, it's like a tenth of what the bureaucracy creates. So if even like our elected officials don't fully know what our government is doing, I guess I just find it hard to believe that we can truly, like, anybody can actually be an educated voter.
I mean, I believe myself to be at least a partially educated voter. I think you can be. I think that most people aren't. It would be good to, like, but in order to make people educated voters, you have to free up their time, right? And they're not going to have free time if they don't have access to basic resources that they need. So, like, if you're going to be an educated voter, like, I think it's very important that you have access to the resources, like basic resources that you require to live. So in order to make a more educated populace, that would, you know, these two different ideas feed into each other, where it's like, how do you, am I making sense? Like, if you have a well-fed and well taken care of populace, they're more likely to be educated and know who and what they're voting for. So that's why I make it a priority.
I mean,
or part of it.
I totally agree that it would help. Obviously, like, there's people in our society that are struggling, and that's terrible. And they can't focus on politics, of course. But like the people in Congress, like I said, they don't even know like the laws being passed or like the regulations being put in place by the federal government fully. Like, a lot of them don't even read through the bills that they vote for. So I mean, if these rich, privileged people who their job is theoretically to understand how our government works, and you know, it happens on both sides of the aisle, like they can't even figure it out. I guess I'm wondering why we trust ourselves and other people to make decisions that have that much impact.
Well, if you have a politician who doesn't read through the bills that they're voting for when that's literally their job, eventually that's going to come back to bite them. And I think that there should be some kind of system in place in order to oust them so that they don't continue making that mistake.
So, I mean, when the Senate comes together and they think about not filibuster, what omnibus bill they're going to pass next, like, do you think all of the members like in the Senate actually have the same level of input, or do you think that the leadership kind of just meets behind closed doors, comes up with like kind of the uniparty agenda, like we're going to keep funding defense, we're going to keep subsidizing our friends like in Silicon Valley, etc., and then they give it to the Senate, and then I mean that's kind of the system, isn't it, Alec?
That's usually a result of corporate influence, not like the politicians themselves. It's like a result of monetary influence.
I totally agree. It's a result of corruption, but
that's why I said,
I mean,
like,
still,
you know, just like that's why I don't even really believe in money that much.
I mean, I just struggle to understand how we can trust like a concept like democracy when, I mean, it's inherent that's going to result in party structures like this.
But you're an ANCAP, right?
Yeah.
So why do you trust like Ancapistan? Like, why do you think things would be better in Ancapistan when like corporations are free to do whatever they want?
Well, I mean, with the way I view politics and just life in general is that like consent should always be the value. I take the NAP very seriously. And I think that that's like the reason why I believe in it is not necessarily like what might happen, but just that we should all treat each other with the same rights and the same way that we would want to be treated.
What if I don't consent to go into work tomorrow?
Then I'll go. That's great.
Yeah, and then I don't make money, and then I can't live.
Okay, that's your choice. I mean, you have a right to.
What do you mean that's my choice? Go to work or die? Is that my choice?
I mean, there's a lot of different choices. I mean, you could say
work
like
or die.
It's still a choice though. Like, obviously, like the way we live in a scarce world, Alec. Like, you have to work.
No, we don't. We really don't. We have more houses than we have homeless people in the United States. That's true. Why can we not just house them?
The reason we can't just house everybody is that obviously, like, you need people to maintain the houses. So, I mean, if you're saying that, like, we need more, like, there needs to be an incentive for renters to have property and, like, rent it out.
Okay, repair the houses or you don't eat. Is that the incentive?
The incentive is repair the houses or you don't eat.
Yeah, work or die. That's the incentive that you're proposing, right? Work or die.
Yeah, I mean,
No, I disagree with that. Incentivize the work in other ways. You don't have to say work or die. You can say, hey, listen, you get the basic necessities that you need by default, but if you work, you get a little extra. And you can like buy a yacht or like go on a vacation. You know, like you don't need vacations, but they're certainly nice to have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, incentivize it.
So I mean, what do you think would happen though if the government said housing was a right? Like there would be no more private housing sector, right?
Based.
Based.
Yeah, good.
So what happens when the government controls like an entire chain of production and economy?
When the government what now?
Like what happens when the government establishes a monopoly over something in the economy?
Well, then there will be democratic control over the housing market, which I think is great, is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean that's one result, but like I would believe that,
and we can agree that would be a good result, right?
Democratic control over the housing progress or process. No,
why not?
Like I said, like there's nothing that like. I mean, I would say like if we had really small governments, like in a local area, like I would even grant you that like, yeah, that might be a really great thing if you just had a community and like the community like all came together and they agreed they wanted to pool the resources like this. But like if the federal government did that, that'd be terrible.
Why is it okay on a small scale but not a large scale?
Because there is like such a thing as diseconomies of scale. Voters like don't have a lot of buy-in to what happens to people that are out of sight, that they're out of mind. And I mean, I have no issue with communities or like even like I guess we would say like quasi states like on a localized level. I just don't think that like a large country like ours with so many different interests can properly represent everybody.
I think it can. I think that most people want good things for both themselves and other people. I believe that.
Okay, but let's say Alec, everybody actually did research the housing market and they came up with their own conclusions. Like there's plenty of academics and like different perspectives on how we solve it. Like there's a lot of people like I would obviously say like deregulation's the answer, but like other people might come to the conclusion the state should just provide housing. And I don't necessarily like think that having either one of those opinions is like radical or like hard to come by. But I mean, people have conflicting ideas of how to allocate resources. So I mean, it's going to lead to conflict if you attempt to have the state.
Yeah, that's why I believe in a democratic allocation of resources, aka a democratic government.
What do you mean by that, then? Because that's not what we have now, then.
Well, we have a democracy. We do live in a democracy. It is like not perfect. I would change a lot of things, like take away the electoral map, or the what is it? Not the electoral map. What is it called?
College.
Thank you. The electoral college. I would take that away. I would make it ranked choice. I would make it more democratic, but we do live in a democracy, and I think that democratic rule with protections for like minority groups would be the way to go. Like it's not perfect. It never will be perfect, but I think that's the closest to perfect that we could get, unless you have a better system in mind.
I would generally agree that like as far as like the types of governments we see in the world today, like democracy, especially our kind of rights-based democracy, is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, voters like are inherently less informed than consumers. Like if I was just shopping for a house, I would know a lot more about what I want, about what I need, than if I was shopping for a political candidate, for instance. And there's a lot of things that I mean, we can both agree that we need shelter. But like some people might propose that like a car is a human right. If we start interpreting rights in this positivist lens,
that what's a human right?
That a car could be. If we just start assuming that like,
let's talk about that. Do most people need a car to get to work?
I don't believe so, Alec. I'm just saying that if we go down this road of just declaring things to be rights,
so we can have that discussion on what is a right and what isn't. But like, if you need a car, like if people absolutely need cars in order to make ends meet, then yes, I believe that a car is a human right. Okay, like if you absolutely need a car to get to your job, then you should have a car, period, end of story.
Maybe we should talk about what a right is then.
Sure.
Like, so to you, what is a right?
It's whatever you need to survive on a basic level.
So I mean, by that logic,
thrive in
like
some circumstances,
we wouldn't have a right to own guns. You don't need those to survive.
I believe you have a right to own guns, yeah. That's fair, that's fair. Let me modify it. So I think that human right is something that... Ooh, that's a good question, actually. A human right is something you need to survive, or... You know, it can be a matter of... oh, man. I don't know how to define this exactly, but it's essentially something... Like, my baseline is, if you're doing it, and it's not hurting other people, then it's your human right to do that. And on top of that, you also get the basic necessities you need to survive. Is that fair?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I think that's a good position to have. Yeah. But like, my issue is like, I would love to live in a society that did have like communities that provided all these basic resources to people. But I think like as a prerequisite towards these positivist prescriptions, we need to ensure that people like aren't being infringed upon. And I mean, I get that like it's easy to say that taxes are justified like through utilitarian perspective, but we can't just like start infringing
on an island, man.
Like I said before, we could just say all day about any social issue or any political issue that if you don't like it, just leave.
Where do you think all of the public accommodations that you enjoy come from? Like highways, libraries, parks, the firefighters, the police. Like, where do you think that comes from? If you don't want any of those things, feel free to go live on an island and not have them. But I like living in a society where I have those things.
It comes from the state because they're like either monopolized or there's incredibly high barriers to entry. Just because the state provides them now, yeah. Yes, Alec, but just because it provides them now doesn't mean it's the most effective way to provide them.
Then what effective way would you propose? Private?
Well, I would propose the privatization of all these services. And
okay, so McDonald's. So envision this: McDonald's highway. You have to pay $25 every time you get on the road, but if you pay $50 a month, you can get gold access, and you get to go 70 miles an hour as opposed to 55, which everybody else has to go. And if you're caught without your gold pass going 70 miles an hour, you get arrested. Does that sound good?
I feel like that could work in situations, but honestly, like when we
why would that work? This is stupid. I don't want premium access to fucking highways.
Alex, you're already paying for highways. That's where your
taxes go. For taxes, and I'm fine with that. So I don't want a private. I don't have any like democratic control over a private corporation. I don't trust them.
So let's say like I don't use the highway nearly at all. I mean I take my public transportation around.
Okay, good for you. But I do.
So why am I paying for it? Like if it was privatized, why?
You're allowed to use it. At any point you can get on the highway. You're allowed.
Yeah, but like so they should just be providing services that I might not want or ever use, and I should just have to pay for that.
Yes, because most people want and or use them. Yes.
That's great. If most people want and or use them, then there obviously be market demand, and they could be funded voluntarily, and
they should be available no charge at the point of entry. They should be available for no charge at the point. This is like the same way that I say healthcare should be free. Everybody's not going to need the same amount of healthcare, but if we can agree that healthcare is a human right, which I don't know if you agree with that, but I think that it's a human right because, you know, that's literally in my nurse's code of ethics as well. Healthcare is a human right. Therefore, anybody who needs care, like let's say you have a seizure and you're about to die, I believe that you deserve healthcare right then and there. You should not have to pay for it.
Okay, so you believe that if you had a seizure and you're about to die and there's a doctor nearby, he could be compelled by force to treat you?
He's compelled by his doctor's code of ethics. If he doesn't treat me, he should lose his license. If he has the material to do it, if he has like the capability of treating me right then and there and he doesn't, then yeah, I don't want that person being a doctor.
But I'm not asking about like the consequence of him not doing it, but like I'm asking like if it is a right, somebody watching would have the ability to force him to perform that, right? To save you and make sure your rights are being enforced.
I think that I have the right to health care. If somebody takes the doctor's oath and they don't perform their duty as a doctor, they're forfeiting their title as a doctor. I think that's fine.
Okay, but nobody watching the situation has a right to compel them to save you.
If they're a doctor, they sure do.
Okay, so
they're like, you're a doctor, save that guy. Hey, what if it's your child? What if it's your 10-year-old? Hey, you're a doctor, please save my child. Oh, sorry, I don't want to. What are you going to do?
Could that person at that point then say, I'm going to attack you or hurt you if you do not save this person?
I'm going to attack you or hurt you.
Yeah. Or, like I get like you can shame people all you want, but like fundamentally when it's a right, like it has to be enforceable.
I think there's two sides that you can look at this. One is the emotional side. The emotional side of me would say, yeah, I would understand if somebody would attack you for not treating their child, especially if it's like imagine, okay, I'm not going to treat your child who's having a seizure because he's black, right? Like if I were the parent of that child, I would be like, yeah, I would say like I will threaten you until you treat my child. And I think that in a court of law, that person could be forgiven in many ways. I don't think that should be the standard, but I think that yes, you could forgive that person. Because that's literally a life you're talking about. Like the alternative is if I don't hold this person at gunpoint, my child is going to die. So the outcome is a child's life is saved, and I think that's fine.
Okay. I mean, like, oh, okay. You would say it would be okay if they saved the child's life to coerce somebody into doing something.
In some circumstances.
Right. Okay.
I think it needs to be reasonable. I think it needs to be justifiable. Like if somebody has a doctor's license and they're literally not doing their due diligence as a fucking doctor, then yeah, I think that like a person who's like sitting there watching their child die would be like justified in saying, hey, I know you're a doctor. Save my child.
I mean, like, I think that's certainly likely to happen. I can understand why it would happen.
Right.
But the point of ethics isn't to like empathize with certain situations. It's supposed to be to solve interpersonal conflict. I mean, I would say that you cannot force people or attempt to force people into any action, just because you feel sad or really upset about something.
Then
like,
at
you
minimum,
might do it, but that's not
then at minimum, they need to lose their doctor's license. They're no longer a doctor. If they don't want to treat people who are dying, they don't get to be a doctor. Period. End of story.
I mean, that's another thing, like the whole doctor's license thing. But I mean, yeah, like if you have agreed to serve people, and there's like some kind of contract, I guess, in the anarcho-capitalistic society saying that you will serve people always, which should be for doctors. Obviously, that's your job. Like, yeah, that should be removed. But I just don't think that like there is an intrinsic right to force people to save other people's lives.
But if you're a doctor, if you're just an average civilian, like you're an engineer, and somebody says, save my child's life. No, you don't have the duty to save that person's life. You don't even know how. If you have CPR training, part of CPR training is, like, yeah, you should try to save somebody's life if you have the ability to. I just don't understand why this is a silly scenario to me. Why would somebody be a doctor and not attempt to save somebody's life?
I mean, it could be all kinds of reasons.
Like?
I mean, I'm not here to, like, say how legitimate this scenario is or how likely it is. I'm just giving it as an example and seeing how you would address it ethically. That's all.
I just think it's a silly scenario because if you're a doctor, and somebody's having a seizure in front of you, you're going to save their life.
Sure, like 99.9% of the time you will. But if you, for whatever reason, don't like them, like let's say that like you personally feel them to be a bad person for whatever reason, maybe they wouldn't.
Okay, you don't get to be a doctor anymore.
Just an example. Okay,
I'm fine with stripping that person of their license.
But I mean, going back to the broader point about like being able to compel people to perform or
that's not compelling. That's literally you taking an oath saying, I will save people's lives if I'm a doctor, and then you don't save their life. You're breaking the doctor's code.
No, I totally agree. Like you are. If you have, like you said, you are a doctor and like you have pledged to a certain code, you are probably not a doctor anymore.
Right.
But I mean, I'm trying to go back to the broader point that like we have a right to tax people because it leads to better outcomes for them, or stops them from dying, or whatever.
We have the right to tax people because the government owns the money. It's literally the government's money. It's not yours. The government gives it to you.
So what happens in countries when people lose faith in the money and they start using other currencies? What happens to those people?
When they lose faith in the country's money and they start using other currencies?
Yeah.
Can you give me an example?
I mean, Argentina, I'm sure you know that their economy was completely ruined by inflation and Keynesian economics and attempting to give positive rights and housing to everybody. And what happened was people quit using their currency because it was so inflated that they started using US dollars instead. And the government responded by imprisoning people. fining people ludicrous amounts of money,
okay,
confiscating US
so
dollars.
the government reacted in a reactionary fashion, whereby instead of addressing the root problem, they started imprisoning people. They're not going to fix the problem that way.
Right, but that's inherently what's going to happen, because any government in the world right now is funded through their own currency for the most part, like as you said. And they have an incentive not to let people trade or engage in economic activity without their currency, because if they do, then it completely delegitimizes them and basically makes it so they can't participate in the economy or even hire people anymore at a certain point.
You shouldn't be forced to tax people at the threat of jail. That's your position?
Yeah, obviously.
But you do believe that you should be forced to work at the threat of death.
Forced to work.
Yes, it is, man. It's work or die.
That might be a bigger issue, is that like you're prescribing to the labor theory of values. You think that people are being exploited.
Okay, what should happen to me if I decide I don't want to work tomorrow? I just never work again.
What should happen to you? I don't have any claim on that. I mean,
what do you mean? Come on, don't be a pussy. Come on, like what do you think should happen?
So in my society, you could go live in a co-op with other people and just farm and hang out and do whatever you want.
I don't have a co-op. I don't know anybody. I'm a loner.
Well, I guess in that situation, if you literally nobody knows you, nobody cares about you, you don't care about yourself enough to provide yourself resources.
It's not that I don't care. No, I love doing things. I love playing video games. I love crocheting. I love streaming on YouTube, but I don't make enough money to sustain myself.
Yeah, I mean that's sad.
So you die.
There's charities, but I guess you don't know anybody, so you can't.
Charities won't accept me.
Okay.
There's no charities within driving distance.
I can't help you. Like there's people in any system that just refuse all help. You know.
Right. So your answer is work or die.
No.
Yes, it is, man.
There's no kinds of alternatives. Like you could go join a co-op, go live with other people.
You could, but I don't feel like it. I don't feel like joining a fucking co-op. I'm a loner. I want to be alone. I want to play my little video games. Exactly.
Okay, imagine we live in a society where you could literally just never work. There are so many jobs that people would never do.
Yes, that's the society I want. Perfect. Pog.
Great. So we would have just sewage everywhere. There'd be trash laying everywhere.
That's not true. Is there sewage everywhere in your house?
You know why there's not? Because there's people that are paid by the government many times over minimum
my point
wage
is, do you shit and piss all over your house?
I don't, but obviously...
No, do you use the toilet? Why do you use the toilet?
Why do I use the toilet?
Yes. Why don't you just shit where you sit?
Because that's gross.
Exactly. There's gross, because there's incentive to shit in the toilet.
Okay, so you're saying that in a society where nobody's obligated to work, so they're all provided for, that there's going to be people that volunteer to go clean out the sewers and fix issues like that.
Not volunteer. Incentivize them. Tell them, hey, you'll get extra money. You'll get extra whatever it is. Like you'll get to go on a vacation. You'll get to do this and that. You reward them. You don't say, hey, do this or die.
Okay, so you incentivize them, but
yes.
So you believe in like labor vouchers is what you're saying, basically?
I don't care how you do it. I've never really sat down to think about it that in depth, but I think that people should just be provided with the basic necessities they need, and then their government officials should be elected in order to care for, take care of the basic necessities of a society, like working sewage. And if they're not taking care of that, kick them out.
Okay. I mean, the solution usually in communist countries that have existed in the real world is to just give people medals or like attempt to make them feel proud of their labor, and that generally doesn't work.
Okay, I think it's stupid. I don't agree with that. Give them real incentives.
Okay, real incentives.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would agree. You need to give people incentives to do anything in the economy.
Well, your version is work or die. That is your version. You can deny it all you want, but that's exactly what you're saying.
I mean, that's the reality. We live in a scarce world, Alec. Like, people do need to work to live.
We have plenty of... Do you know we have more food than, like, we need? Like, we could feed the world, like, 10 times over with the amount of food that we have. Do you know how much we waste?
The United States definitely could. You're not wrong. Yes. There's a lot of misallocation.
Yes. It's called post-scarcity, and we live in it.
But, Alec, imagine everybody just quit working. What would happen?
People would still find ways to be productive. People do. You have a very bleak view of humanity, my friend. I think that people will just find ways to be productive. And if they don't, we can incentivize them. We can say, hey, you get a little bit of extra. But I think that people should just be taken care of at the point of entry into the world, aka birth. You're born, you get you automatically, when you turn 18, you get access to a house, you get access to food on the table, water in the faucet, a toilet to shit in. Like, you just get these things, and I think that's fine. We have the resources to do that.
Somebody has to provide all those things. So basically, we'll just be taking so there's just basically we're still using incentives. We're just all doing it through the government, so we don't have any actual price signals.
The difference is your version of incentive is work or die.
Okay,
and I can always water it down to that.
This is a pretty simple question. Like, do you agree monopolies are bad?
Yes.
And then why would it be good?
Let me back up. I think a monopoly of the people is good because that's democracy.
I mean, it's great as long as you're in the majority, Alec. But I don't want to live in
dictatorship of the proletariat. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, I'm aware of the term.
Yeah, it's good. How else are you going to structure society?
How else are you going to structure society? You don't need a hierarchy in society. It's pretty obvious.
I would like to dismantle the hierarchy at some point. I don't consider myself an anarchist, but I guess all of my beliefs water back down to anarchy. But in its current iteration, I think that right now, since we have a government, we might as well use it for the purpose of taking care of people.
Okay,
right?
So do you believe I have a right to initiate force against other people, Alec?
If it's a difference of your survival, sure.
Okay.
I mean, like at that point, if it's the difference between your survival or bodily autonomy, like if that's the difference, then yeah, sure.
I guess I just don't understand how that's anything like more than just the law of the jungle. Like, people just can do whatever they want as long as it somehow benefits them internally, because they all have the right to aggress.
I believe in a democratically elected system, like a rule of the majority, and with protections for the minority.
Where has that worked?
Well, I mean, it's, we have it's not a matter, by the way, of whether or not it has worked in the past. This is what I believe can work and will work if we implement it. But I think right now the United States, even with its broken democracy, has a much more functioning society than, places with like a monarchy or where people like just don't like. I think that I don't know. Like, I just don't know what else would work better.
I mean, I think that's the issue, is that we live in this world. I mean, a lot of communists and socialists say the same thing about capitalism, where we just look at what's around us and we think it's inevitable, but it's obviously not. Like, there's all kinds of societies that do actually practice the NAP. Like, there's Zapistas. They don't coerce labor of other people. They don't collect taxes amongst their members. They just voluntarily work together, and it's a great thing. So, I mean, I agree that, like, when you just look around at the ideologies and the frameworks of society that are accepted by states and governments, democracy is the best one. But yeah. I mean, there is alternatives, obviously, Alec.
Like what?
Like I just mentioned, the Zapistas in Mexico. They're a society that was completely without our concept of hierarchies in the state, and they basically just worked together. They didn't have to.
Through democracy, they all worked together. That's the point.
Yeah, but it wasn't. I mean, they're anarchists, Alec. Like, they have like a different idea of democracy. It's like a direct democracy type thing where everybody's completely equal.
You understand, most anarchists are not ancap, right? And they're also like pro-democracy.
Most anarchists are left-wing anarchists, yes, but they're not pro-democracy in the sense that we understand it. Because they would say that, like, everybody should be equal. We should dismantle the hierarchies. And I agree. Everybody should have same abilities.
What do you mean everybody should be equal?
And that is the point of anarchism, regardless of whatever creed is, to dismantle.
Yeah, but like, what do you mean when you say that? Like, what's in your head?
When I say everybody being equals, they have the same rights. They treat everybody the way they would be treated. They accept other people's autonomy, and nobody supposes that they have the right to allocate resources for other people.
Nobody supposes what? Sorry.
Nobody attempts to believe that they can better allocate resources for other people than they can.
Yeah, but somebody's got to allocate the resources, right? like in an anarchist
Yeah, individuals
society.
can. That's what capitalism has proved, that people do know how to allocate resources.
But why can't the individual say, hey, allocating resources is actually pretty hard and time consuming. Let's elect people to do it for us. And that way we can, people can do it for us. And then that way we can focus our energy on other things. And we can give those people incentives to do that.
I totally agree. Allocating resources is hard and time consuming. That's why capitalism provides things like price signals to indicate to investors what their demand is, right? And if we're the state and we're making all the decisions, there's no price signals. We don't really know the price or opportunity cost of any of the things we're producing. We don't really know the demand fully. Like, we can approximate it, right? But the result is that there's going to be surpluses and shortages in all kinds of different goods and services, right? And when we let the market figure it out, then individuals make decisions, they create price signals, and then the market can move to meet them.
Okay, hold that thought for just a second. I gotta go to the bathroom real quick. Sorry. I'm gonna put you on mute for a sec. All right, I'll be right back, guys. Okay, I'm back. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. So you were talking about price indicators, right?
Yeah, they're crucial.
Why are they crucial?
All right, let's pretend that like you have a plot of land and you're going to develop it, right?
Okay.
So let's say you can choose between like housing
development. Raiders are coming. Raiders are coming. They took over the land. Now what?
I mean, this isn't like I'm trying to.
They used their guns and they took over the land. Now what? We live in Ancapistan, right?
I'm trying to explain to you how price signals work compared
to
like,
but we live in Ancapistan, right? So Raiders came and took over the land and they say it's theirs now. Now what?
Well, I'm just demonstrating how even right now, like in any market, that price signals are important.
Right, we live but in an Ancapistan society, like Raiders come and take my land. What do I do?
I mean, you contract with other people or like a defense service.
Contract? I don't have any money. The Raiders took all my shit.
Well, then the insurance provider was still an incentive.
Insurance provider. The insurance provider denied my claim.
Well, why would they? They have an incentive. If you're being infringed upon, and these
raiders, you think they're gonna pay for all my shit that I just lost? They're an organization that thrives on making money. Does your insurance provider pay for all of your claims? I would love to know your insurance provider if that's the case.
I'm gonna explain to you how we solve this, Alec. First of all, this is a red herring to.
But how do I? But no, you have to help me solve this first because Raiders came and took my land. If we're living in Ancapistan, Raiders came and took my land. Now, how do I solve this problem? The insurance denied my claim. Now what?
Oh, there's like literally almost infinite insurance providers. So, but
they all denied it. They're all trying to make money. They're not going to approve my claim.
If they want to make money, well, what will make them money? Somebody aggressing upon rights that they can take to court and they can collect.
Okay, so my current insurance. So you're saying my current insurance provider denied my claim, therefore I should find a different one, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay, so I'm homeless. I don't have any food. I don't have any water. But you're suggesting that I now take up some paperwork and submit a new claim to a new insurance company where I have to provide all my information and have them process that, and hopefully pray that they'll accept my claim, even though I have no money to pay them.
They have an incentive to, yeah, because they
have an incentive to. I don't have any money. What's their incentive? I don't have any money.
They can collect the money from the Raiders. That's
from the Raiders. Incentive. Why would the Raiders pay them for my insurance?
Because private arbitration, they could arbitrate it.
Arbitrate it? How?
I mean, like, okay, so if you live in a society, right, where everything is done in a decentralized fashion, when you make exchanges, you're going to have somebody undersign that. Like, you're going to have a company say, like, yes, we vouch for ASY
I don't have
the
anything
best
to exchange.
I
don't have anything to exchange. It was all taken from me.
Great. So you've never done anything in a society, you don't know anybody, and you're attacked.
Yes.
Congratulations, homeless people die all the time in the state system.
Oh, so you're just saying die then, man. This is my point. Yes, you just did though. Yes, you did. Come on, man.
Okay. You really want to
like just die then. but that's what you're saying. Come on.
I'm not saying that at all, Alec.
Yes, you just did. Okay, what do I do then? Okay, what do I do then? What do I do?
They have an incentive to protect you because they can collect on the damages that these people are causing or attempting to cause on you. That's the incentive. Right now, the state has no incentive to help you if you're homeless.
Okay. I mean, okay. Insurance company sends somebody out. They kill him. Now what?
Then they can send more people out.
Send more people out? So you're basically just saying they send an army out.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the insurance company has their own private militia that they now send out to the Raiders' house, which they took by force from me, and they, kill the Raiders?
Yeah.
Okay, what's stopping them from taking ownership of the house?
I mean, the fact that you contracted them as a rights enforcement agency.
I don't have anything to pay them.
So at that point, they could collect from the Raiders' estates.
And just keep all of it. Why would they give me a fucking thing?
So basically, the argument you're trying to get at is that like the rights enforcement agency would just become like a warlord.
Yes.
Right. So
is there another alternative?
What happens when aggression increases in an area?
When aggression increases, the strongest wins. That's ancap.
No.
Might makes right.
Not at all.
Yes, it is.
What happened? That's exactly what you're advocating for, and you believe in positivist legal systems. But anyways, no, because the demand for defense goes up, right, Alec?
The what goes up?
The demand for defense goes up. So, like, if there's
so everybody has to have their own private militia, right?
Yes, everybody needs somebody to protect
so
their
everybody
rights,
has everybody has their own private militia. So what you're suggesting is that I have the resources just somehow already to enlist my own private militia. And then I can go around and just warlord all these areas and take them over for myself. Is that correct?
No, I'm explaining this to you.
Why not?
You're creating demand. You're literally creating demand for defensive services.
Yes, militias.
This is a terrible business model.
Guess what? You're going to have a high demand for militias in Ancapistan because there's no government protection.
What happens for the literal millions of people in this country who the government views as enemies because of their skin color? Where do they go when the government infringes their rights every single day, Gunter? They can't go anywhere. There is no escape for people that our government does not care to protect.
That's why I believe in a democratically elected government that protects all people.
Oh, yeah, because these minorities, these people of color, they get so much representation in places like Georgia and their state governments. There's so many laws helping them, Gunter.
Yes, I also believe in protections for minorities. Yes.
Inherently, to have protections for minorities, you have to have the right to switch.
Do we have protections for minorities now?
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
We have attempts at it. We have attempts. But at the end of the day, the majority
attempts. Why do we have attempts? Why do we have attempts?
Because inherently in this country, if you get 70% of people to agree on something, it happens, right?
Yes, and guess what?
Yeah,
it happened.
Right.
Okay, one time we had chattel slavery where we owned black people, and now we don't. How did that happen? It didn't happen by magic.
It happened because the federal government obviously had a war over it. Yeah.
Yeah, the federal and they were pressured by the slaves themselves, along with a bunch of white allies, right?
Black people, they did not.
Because there are people. Because it turns out most people believe in human rights.
Yeah.
Yes.
Most people believe that illegal citizens shouldn't be in the country if you look at polling. That's obviously not correct. There's all kinds of things that most people believe in. That's a complete fallacy. It's an appeal to majority.
Okay,
So
that
what you're
depends on how
saying is
you
you want
word
to
the
live in a
poll.
majority rural country because you think that
That
most
depends
people
on.
will come to the right decision.
So it depends on how you word the polling, first of all, and second of all, if you were to water down, like, do you believe that every human being deserves such and such right? Most people would say yes, they deserve the right to, let's say, healthcare, for instance. Most people believe in the right to healthcare. So, like, they would advocate for the right to health, even if they, like, if you ask them, would you advocate for a raise in taxes? They would say no. But if you say, hey, do you believe that everybody should have healthcare at the point of entry? They would say yes, even if that would entail a raise in taxes. So, it depends on how you word the question. But I do believe that most people believe in, the basic good things that I believe in.
For the least well off, for the people that are affected by the power structures in our society the most, there is no recourse to the state's power because there is a monopoly in rights enforcement. I mean, like, look at the Black Panthers, how much they got demonized for just trying to create self-defense organizations for their own communities. I mean, the federal government went after them hard. And if
Yes.
those were white people doing the same thing, just having gun clubs and stuff, nobody would give a fuck, right? And
Yeah,
that's always going to be the case. There's going to be people in power, and
but
there's going to be
but
people
guess
that
what
aren't
else?
in power.
But the Black Panthers are looked back upon fondly by leftists because they had very good initiatives besides just being a defensive force. They also had universal feeding programs for poor people and their kids. So, like, it's a matter.
The important thing, Alec, is all of these are voluntary by the community. I love these things. The government does not. It undermines the government's legitimacy.
Yes, voluntary by the community. So you're agreeing with me that democratic rule is good, right?
If your definition of democratic rule is people get together voluntarily into social organizations, yes, I totally agree. That's great. That's fantastic. Do it more. But that's not how the state works. That's not how a monopoly.
That is how.
Works.
You organize. People literally organize for elections. You know that, right? To get people elected.
I mean, kind of. I mean,
often that is how that
mean
works.
Anything.
Yes, it does.
It doesn't. So the issue is with saying that, like, yes, there's people in society that are actively engaged, and you could say they're consensual voters. Most people, like, they really aren't actively engaged. I mean, there's a reason why they have to coerce us with weapons.
Why aren't they actively engaged?
To follow laws? They don't care. There's too much information.
So why don't they care?
Because they don't care. Do they need a? Alec,
well, why not? Wait, they just don't care. The people just don't care about the people who rule them. That's just a thing that people do. They don't care.
It may be like you. They just think it's always going to be that way. We're always going to have a state. We're always going to have taxes. Why would they think that? Why would they think that? Because we are born in a society where the state controls things, where the government exists, where we live in a democracy. And maybe it's hard to challenge those presumptions.
You're forced to work or die. So if you're forced to work or die, you're going to be a lot more focused on your work than you are on the people who rule you.
If it really was the case that workers are being forced or exploited, and they actually felt that way genuinely, we would have had a communist revolution a long time ago.
Let's just say that, Alec. Explain unions.
Explain unions?
Yeah.
What do you mean explain unions? Like, unions exist.
But clearly workers are being treated so fairly. Why do they need unions?
Well, I mean, they can form unions if they want to. Yeah, I mean, unions are, like, not really the solvency for capitalism, obviously.
Of course not. So the goal of the capitalist is to make your citizenry as comfortable, at the least amount comfortable that you can possibly be without causing an insurgency. That's the goal.
I guess.
Yes.
If that's the goal of the state, yes.
That's not the goal of a capitalist state.
But anyways, going back to this original point we had about this warmonger, I mean, what is the answer, Alec, if something does go wrong in this democracy and this monopoly of violence is turned against innocent people? What is their recourse? Do they just leave? Is that the argument?
If the democracy of violence is turned against people, like what, they start rolling tanks down the street? Is that what you mean?
Like in our system, like if certain groups of people are just outcasted from political power and they're oppressed, what happens to them? Where do they turn?
Well, what happened with the with slaves?
What happened with slaves? So you're saying the solution is we have to have armed large conflicts over this?
If it comes to that, sure. I would hope it doesn't.
I mean, that's exactly the issue with collectively owning something like a government, because there is no way to settle disputes when it comes down to it, except either complete majority rule or eventually violence if the minority doesn't accept the ruling.
Did you know that it would take about 10% of the entire workforce to completely shut down the economy?
Yeah, it'd probably take 10% of taxpayers
so a
to
minority,
completely
right?
shut down the IRA.
So a minority, right?
Yeah.
Right. So it would take a minority of people in order to completely radicalize how everybody lives, right? People would be in favor of workers' rights real fucking fast, wouldn't they?
Maybe.
Yes.
The reality is what I don't even think that that's what Marxists are advocating for. It's just people being like allowed to but just follow their own pursuits more. I mean, the entire agenda of Marxism is to make a new man, and it goes against nature. So like we could say like
whoa, hold on. What do you mean a new man? What?
Like, do you know what Marx's like end of communism theory was?
Explain it to me like I'm four.
Like, okay, so basically Marx assumes that eventually, as the dictatorship of the proletariat got more and more power, that like workers would take over more and more functions in society, and the state would just kind of wither away, and we would somehow achieve post-scarcity, and then we would get rid. Like, one of his biggest issues was with the division of labor completely. So we would get rid of all specialization, and human consciousness and beings would just let their thoughts and desires go.
I don't think that was a tenet of Marxism. If it was, feel free to correct me. I don't think that Marx was completely correct on everything, by the way.
I mean, I understand. I'm just saying that, like, I think when we assume that when laborers are unhappy with their conditions, I don't think they're going to just inherently go, like, yeah, we want Marxism. Like, I think most people, like, accept that, like, private property is a good thing and all these other things. So, I mean, conflating the idea that, like, just because people are unhappy means they're supportive of, like, X or Y theory of organization, like, I don't think is valid.
If somebody's not making enough money, what are they going to want?
More money.
More money. If somebody's not it doesn't have enough food, what are they going to want?
They're going to want more food.
Exactly. So eventually, all roads lead back to this Marxist theory of more resources and power to the people. So even if they don't know it.
What is the foundation of Marxist theory, in your opinion?
The foundation? I'm not a Marxist expert, but I guess if you held me at gunpoint, the foundation of Marxist, I mean, it would be the Communist Manifesto or like Das Kapital, right? Like it would be like the labor theory of value.
You're absolutely right. Labor theory of value. So, I mean, then the entire argument that Marxists have is based off labor theory of value, correct?
Sure.
So you believe value is objective?
Subjective, yeah. That's why I said I don't completely believe in like Marxist ideology. I think that there are a lot of exceptions to be made, and a lot of like I think I'm not a scholar like Marx was, but I do think that there is subjectivity that needs to be taken into account. Like, you know, if you spend 5 hours digging a hole in your backyard, that doesn't make it valuable. That just means you've spent 5 hours digging a hole in your backyard. But where are we going with this?
Well, I mean, like, to Marx's credit, he agrees with you. Like, only socially necessary labor would be considered to be labor under his theory. Like, you guys are both kind of utilitarians in that way. But I mean, like, where I'm going with this is that obviously we can't quantify the value of labor, and capitalism isn't a binary win-loss exchange. Like, both people win in any voluntary exchange, and you're gonna say that's not voluntary. But why would I engage in work if I preferred the alternative?
Prefer the alternative, which is what?
Which is unemployment, which is less exchange value, less resources, essentially.
Then you don't have to work. That's fine.
Great. That's all I'm saying is that obviously labor isn't inherently exploitative. If it was, people just wouldn't work. They wouldn't value.
You and me wake up on an island, and I wake up first. Okay, I wake up first. It's very important that I wake up first, and I see coconuts all around the island, right? And I decide I'm going to take all the coconuts and pile them up into one big pile and block them off from you. And then you wake up, and you see all the coconuts piled up into one big pile, and I say, and you ask for coconuts because you're hungry, and I say, oh well. As you can see, I already gathered all the coconuts. But, all right, I am willing to give you some if you suck my dick. Is that fair?
So you're arguing not necessarily against voluntary exchange. You're presupposing that monopolies exist, which they don't. So that's kind
no.
of
I'm just asking. No, this is a very simple scenario. Is that fair or not?
Well, I mean, you're not actually disproving the point you're trying to prove. I'm saying that like that
the point
doesn't
I'm
happen.
no. The point that I'm proving is that this system is inherently unfair. You either work or you die. You can suck my dick or you can die of starvation, bitch. So get sucking. That's my point.
Your argument rests on the existence of a natural monopoly. You understand that, right, Alec?
A natural monopoly? What do you mean?
I mean, like you're presupposing that in this situation that a monopoly on all coconuts and any close substitutes for nourishment has been achieved, right?
You woke up one day and Disney existed. What are you going to do about that? You going to overtake Disney?
What did you say, Alec?
You woke up one day and Disney just existed. They already existed, right? We can agree on that? You just woke up and Disney was there.
Yeah.
And there is shit all that you can do about it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is exactly what I mean. The coconut analogy. You can
That's
either
completely
work.
Different. Disney's
That's not different at all.
It is completely different. They don't have a monopoly on anything.
What are you talking? They have a huge monopoly on media.
Can you define monopoly? I guess we have different terms.
It doesn't even matter if it's a monopoly, by the way. They have a fuck ton of resources that you don't, and you're just fine with that.
Okay. I don't want any of them, and we're not talking about any kind of.
You don't want their money? You don't want like enough money that you don't have to work anymore?
What are you exactly arguing? Like,
what I'm arguing is that one day you just literally woke up and Disney existed, okay? Which means that you didn't have any opportunity like that Disney had. But they already have control over all these different forms of media. If you want to go even further, we can say Walmart existed, and so they have control over very basic necessities that you know have to work and pay for at their discretion. Okay? If you were told by Walmart tomorrow, suck my dick or you don't eat, you're going to suck their dick so that you can eat.
Yeah, if it was a monopoly, I would. But monopolies don't actually naturally arrive.
No. It's not even just a matter of there being a monopoly. It's a matter of there being corporate interest. Okay? You work or you die.
Alec, you're conflating monopolies with
You work or you die, yes or no? In our current society, you work or you die. Yes, okay. So you work or you die. So do you have a choice that whether to work?
Yes, you always have a choice.
Okay, so then you have a choice whether or not to suck my dick on Coconut Island, right? You have a choice. You can die.
Your example doesn't prove the point, Alec, because
yes, it does. This proves my point perfectly. You would suck my dick so that you don't die, right? Or die. That's fine.
That is.
And that's your choice. And that's your choice. That's a choice. The free choice that you have. Right?
I mean, yeah, I'm making that decision on my own.
Okay. Yes. So you chose to suck my dick, right? That was your free will.
We both agree that slavery is a choice too, by the way, Alec.
Oh yeah, that's the first thing you came here for. Slavery is a choice. No, slavery is not a choice. That's stupid.
Wait. You just said it was a choice, that you took everything I need to survive, and you're asking me to suck your dick.
I'm saying it's not a choice. I'm saying the choice is not even there. You work or you die is not a real choice. That's a fake choice. Forced upon you by your betters, and you just gobble that up. I don't.
Forced upon me?
Yes.
Wait, what? I mean, okay, imagine you woke up on the Coconut Island and you chose not to work. What would happen to you?
I chose not. What do you mean I chose not to work?
You chose not to perform any labor. You just sat there on the beach. You watched the sun.
Do I have coconuts available to me that I can just go pick off of a tree and break open and eat?
That is work, Alec. You are working.
Yes, it is in fact work to open my mouth and chew the food. Good job, man.
And what's picking the coconut. You are taking.
Yes, it's work to walk to. Yes, it is in fact work, labor, to walk to my fridge and get a slice of pizza. You're right. What's your point?
So then we totally agree then that yes, you do.
We're talking about work on two totally different scales here, man. You're being pedantic.
Wait, I'm not though, because
yes, you are.
I have no issue, like in my society, if you just want a homestead, like
I do in fact have to chew the food. There's not going to be a mother bird to do it for me. You're right. Good job. What's your point?
I'm just saying, like in my society, I'm not saying you would have to perform a 9-to-5 job. Like you could just homestead some land and just farm on it.
Homestead it. What if okay, so we go back to the Raider scenario. What if I just take yours that you homesteaded?
Oh my God, Alec.
Seriously, no, answer the question. What if I just take it? You said you can file a claim with your insurance company, but I'm telling you that the insurance denied you. Is that not a thing that insurance companies do?
there is always a possibility that there's nobody to enforce your rights. That happens in any government system. But in a privatized one, there's an incentive to profit and to collecting damages.
Yeah, and the most profit you're going to make as an insurance company is to deny claims. That's not a well-known fact. They deny most claims.
What? Yeah, that happens right now. I'm saying, like, in this example, we were talking about right now, insurance companies don't actually settle disputes like this, right? Obviously. So I don't understand how it's
What are you talking about?
But, like, okay, if somebody breaks
Have you ever been denied a claim?
No, I have not been.
No.
If someone breaks into your house,
what's your insurance? I envy you. Seriously. Like, I've been denied claims before. Most people have.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm like 20, so I don't have insurance.
Okay.
That's fine.
Well, okay, well, there you go. When you get insurance, you'll learn. I'm 28, man.
I'm great. I understand. Like, people get denied claims all the time. It's terrible. What I'm saying is that right now, if someone breaks into your house, your insurance agency doesn't stand to gain anything from that person. Am I wrong? Like, is there any incentive for my insurance agency?
They've been gaining from me. They've been gaining from me. Okay? They take my money all the time, every month.
Yeah.
That's homeowners insurance.
You pay them because they provide you insurance when things go wrong. So you should
and then they deny my claims. What's stopping them from denying my claims? What's stopping them?
A long time ago, there used to be organizations in society called mutual aid societies, and they used to perform like insurance agencies, and they were made up of people in communities and did a much better job doing things. I wonder what happened to those, Alec.
I don't know. I don't know anything about this.
They got legislated out of existence. I mean, these were leftist organizations for the most part.
I'll bet you that a conservative legislation did that, didn't they?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I don't really care. I don't like conservatives.
I think that's bad. I think the government is capable of doing bad things.
Yeah.
I never said that.
I'm just explaining to you that there is alternatives, and the government, obviously, like, maybe the way we perceive things, it has to be corporate. But no, for most of human history, especially in immigrant or like marginalized communities, people found answers and solutions within their own groups.
Okay, well,
that's great.
Humanity started as its own group, and we developed capitalism. And I don't like capitalism, so clearly something went wrong somewhere. We have a better understanding of how, like, communities work now that we've developed, like, you know, proper frontal cortexes or whatever. So, like, I think that we should use that brain power to establish a better society. Don't you?
I mean,
a more equitable society.
Do we agree that capitalism, and I don't even believe in intellectual property, but, like, do we agree that these things do incentivize technological development?
That capitalism does?
Yeah, and, like, incentives for profit.
Hell no.
No, you don't believe that these concepts incentivize
what technology? Makes you more money? What makes you more money? Developing, putting forward money into all of the research and resources that it would require to develop a new type of technology, or just copycatting the technology?
I mean, the reason why we have intellectual property protections is so you can have a monopoly on the technology for a set period of time. And that's why we see in the United States, we have the most patents per capita in the world, because we have such a terrible intellectual property
But you haven't answered my question. Which one makes you more money?
I'm explaining to you that that's not how it works in the real world. And, like, yeah, you make more money when you invent things.
I'm asking you, devoid of all, like, we live in Ancapistan. There's no government to stop me from copying you. Like, let's say that you develop a new cancer treatment. Let's say that you develop a new cancer treatment, and I copycat that and sell it for cheaper. What's stopping me from doing that?
In that world, there's nothing stopping you, and that's great, because you shouldn't be stopped. But, I mean, when we're talking about capitalism in the real world, like, I understand that you don't like capitalism in the real world, but, like, intellectual property does encourage growth with technology, right?
No.
No.
No, it does not.
Really?
I think that people innovate on their own. They don't need a monetary incentive to innovate. The monetary incentive is to copycat.
If this is true, then why does the United States have the most patents in the world per capita?
Most patents?
Yeah.
Doesn't a patent protect you from other people copying you?
Yeah, that's an incentive. Is that
okay? But in Capistan, there's no patents then, because there's no government to stop people from copying you.
I understand. I don't even like patents, Alec. But, like, I think a lot of capitalists do, and the system we have now is a form of capitalism, right?
It is capitalism, yes.
Right. And capitalism in its current form, I mean, I'm not saying I agree with everything that goes on in our society, but I mean, like we do have intellectual property protections, right?
Yes. And I think
And
in
that
many
does
ways that's
encourage
good and it can be
innovation, right?
abused. Huh?
Yeah, totally. Like, there's no right to intellectual property. It's just an idea. I agree with you. But I mean,
Sure.
like they do exist and they do encourage like inventions, right?
The intellectual, sorry, intellectual property safeguards encourage inventions. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Or sorry, innovations.
Yeah.
I think it can. I think it's. I think that it is a band-aid solution to what it could very simply be just, abolish monetary incentives.
I mean, I totally agree. I don't like it, but I'm just saying, like in capitalistic society, the way it is arranged now, we have it, and it encourages innovation. I think that's a pretty
Right, but
simple
you're an
point.
ancap, so you like that to some extent. You like it
I
better than
like
my version.
intellectual property. I don't.
No,
Intellectual
I'm not saying
property,
you like
property
intellectual
has to
property.
be.
I'm saying that you like the fact that we have to like safeguard people from being copycats. Like that's a better system
No.
to you than just taking away the monetary incentive. Because if there's no
I,
monetary incentive to copycat, then people won't copycat. There's no reason to.
I mean, it is an incentive for people to innovate. I don't like it. I think consequentially though, like it does provide more innovation. So I mean, what I'm saying is like obviously if capitalism accelerates technological development the way that it's arranged now, I mean, if we were to achieve post scarcity, I think it would have to be through
We
capitalism.
are
Like
in
we would
post
have to.
scarcity. We
We're
are.
not, Alec.
Yes,
If
we are,
everyone quit
dude. Come on.
working,
Do we have to look up the stats?
okay, so you're saying that like, oh, people don't need to work 9 to 5 jobs, like maybe, I
Yes.
guess, but like, yeah, you still have to work. We don't have the
Yes, I
automation
do.
that
In
humans
fact, have to get up and go to my fridge to get the food. You're right.
somebody has to grow the food. We don't have robots yet that can do everything for us.
I have to grill the food. You're right. Anything
Yeah.
else?
So you have to grow the food, you have to bake the bread, you have to do all these
Yes.
different things.
Yes.
Theoretically, you
Or
wouldn't actually want to do everything. You would trade with other people, right?
yeah, you're right. I wouldn't
So
want to do everything. I would want somebody to do some things for me because I'm not capable of doing everything by myself. You're right. And that's why I believe in a socialist society where people are incentivized to do those things. Guess what? There's going to be somebody who likes cooking. You ever met somebody who likes cooking? They make great food.
sure.
And they should be incentivized to make that. They should be rewarded for making that. That's great.
Yeah, that's what
Same with art.
that's what prices do. That's why good bakers make more money.
That's not always the case. If you start a small baking business, you can be eaten up by a gigantic corporation like Walmart. They can just buy you out.
Wait, what?
If you are a good baker,
why would they have an interest in
what do you
buying
like
out
doing?
like a small artisan
What's your
bake
passion?
shop?
What's your passion? What do you like doing?
It's my passion. I mean, I'm an economics student, so
An economics student. Is there anything that you like doing in your free time?
is there anything I like
Passion-wise.
doing in my free time?
Yeah, what
I
do you like
mean,
doing?
I live in a society. I'm in a stage of my life where I have to work basically all the time. I like playing basketball. That's about it.
You like playing basketball.
Yeah.
Okay. What's stopping you from becoming a pro basketball player and playing for fun?
Because
Just
the
for
value
money.
of me playing basketball is well below the minimum wage. That's why.
Right. So what if you just could live and play basketball? Wouldn't that be a better
can.
life?
I mean, I don't know.
No,
I would have a lot.
You're not. You say you're an economics major. I'm telling you, you don't have to work a job. You just play basketball. That's your thing.
I mean, it would be better for me personally, but if everybody viewed it that way, I mean, at the end of the day, I understand you think I'm being pedantic, but like there is jobs in society that have to be done, and you're saying you can be incentivized. And I agree, but I think
Okay.
the
Okay.
incentivization
So
comes
imagine
down to
this.
currency.
Imagine this. You have the bare minimum. You have a house. You have food. You have water. You have a bed to sleep in. You have a pot to shit in. Okay. You have all that good stuff, and you play basketball. One day, you see an ad. Sewers must be cleaned. Bonus incentive of whatever, $10,000. You take it?
I don't even know what money would mean at that point. Like we'd have so much provided to us.
Good point.
I mean, I can't. What, Alec?
We can only think in terms of money. Like, I'm not even capable of thinking outside of the terms of money right now. Like, I don't know what that society would look like. But there are incentive. My point is, there's an incentive structure in place for people to go and do these jobs that other people wouldn't otherwise normally do.
Okay, so
I think that's better than threatening their livelihood.
So think about food, water, all these other things, right? So these are pretty high priorities for humans, is having needs for survival. Those are high.
Yeah, so let's hold them over people's heads so that they do what we want, right?
No, wait. So let's say that all of these are met. So then as we go down the list of priorities, and we get to things like social well-being, like cleanliness in the communities, like all these things that we both care about, right? But they're lower on the list than needs, than necessities. So the opportunity cost of me not doing these things is like a lot lower. Like I would rather value wants a lot more than these things, like compared to them. Like if I just go play basketball all day, like I'm obviously gonna prefer that.
Do you like going on vacation?
Not particularly, no.
No. What do you like doing besides basketball? That you don't get to normally do. Where do you like to go?
I like running.
You like running? Where do you like to go? Do you like to travel anywhere? Do you like to do anything expensive anytime?
I enjoy my public parks.
Your public parks. Okay, so you just get a public park. You know that, right? Like under like right now, actually, you just get a public park, which is funny for somebody who claims to be an ancap, because public parks wouldn't exist for you. But anyway, let's say
I would still have a right to them, actually. So
okay, let's say that you get a trip to Yellowstone National Park, all expenses paid.
Yeah.
Would you work for that?
Would I work for that?
Yeah, just a little bit of work, like 5 hours.
I mean, I may. It's a lot less likely I'd work for that than like feeding myself, though. That's all I'm saying. Is
that's because you have to eat to live, man. You're literally like, yeah, I have to work in order to survive, and I'm fine with that. The boot is pressing into your skull and cracking it, and you're just like, yeah, this is fine.
Yeah, because that's nature. Like, what animals do you?
What do you mean that's nature? No, come on, we're humans, man. We're better than that.
Your issue is with scarcity, Alec. It's not with capitalism.
Okay, the fundamental difference here is that you don't think that we live in a post-scarcity society, and I can prove to you that we do. Would you like me to?
Okay, if you want to prove, what does scarcity mean to you, first of all?
That we don't have enough food and water for everybody to survive, or basic necessities, I should say, such as food and water, for everybody to survive. That's scarcity.
I would say that you could centrally plan and communist, that kind of stuff up for the most part. I would agree with that. But there's so much more to life than just necessities.
That's what I'm saying.
There's so many more efficient ways.
But that's exactly my point. Wait. Hold on. That's my point. So there's way more to life than just necessities. So what I'm saying is, you get your basic necessities free of charge. Period, end of story. You get your basic necessities. But as you just said, there's more to life than just basic necessities, my friend. So what do? You incentivize people to do more work so that they don't have to just subsist off of basic necessities. Make sense?
I mean, I see what you're saying, but it's just not. It's not what happens in economies like that.
What do you mean economies like that? Like a socialist one?
Yeah, I mean, socialist economies, when you don't have price signals, I was trying to explain to you before we just started rambling about warlords, you can't make decisions that are socially needed easily.
Such as?
If I owned a plot of lands and I had four options, I can make a housing development, I can make a computer development firm, I can make a park.
Unless raiders come and take it.
What?
Which is what happens in Ancapistan.
I'm trying to demonstrate to you why you need price signals. I understand that you might have concerns about how this is protected, but the way that it's allocated is by price.
Okay. Let me ask you this. You're an ANCAP, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
How is society structured?
How is society structured? There's people that have certain rights, and then there's everybody else that doesn't have those rights. That's what it is.
What are you talking about? What rights? What rights would you have that I don't?
There's people like police and road pirates and politicians that are completely on a different plane of existence than we are right now. And we, Alec, we function for the most part. We don't aggress on other people. We don't steal from other people. We have the same rights, and that's great. But these other people, they think that because of their positions, because they're elected, quote unquote, they have a right to do these things.
Right. So my question is, My question is not how society is currently set up. How do you set it up?
How do I set it up?
Yes.
People get to choose. It's completely voluntary.
Voluntary as in what?
I mean, there's plenty of anarcho-capitalists or like libertarians or even anarcho-syndicalists and left-wingers that like acknowledge that states might arise, but like people should have to sign an explicit contract instead of this like social contract thing that's implicit.
Who enforces this contract?
Who enforces this contract?
Who enforces it? Like what? Like, give me an example of a contract.
Like, let's say like like Adam wants to live in a community. So everybody in this community has kind of like made this contract up that says like you have to cut your grass like once a month. You can't steal, you can't lie, all these things, whatever they choose, and then they make Adam sign it.
How big's the community?
What is the community?
How big is the community?
I don't know. It could be a couple hundred. It could be a couple thousand. It could be millions, I guess.
Couple hundred. Would this work on a scale of like, let's say, a dozen people?
Sure.
Sure? Okay. So a dozen people are living. You want to go there, but you're told you have to sign this contract in order to live there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I pull out my gun. I'm Adam. I pull out my gun and I say, no, I don't. I own this place now. Now what?
Okay. I mean, at that point, you're being aggressive, and they can defend themselves.
So they can defend themselves. Okay. I shoot them. Now they can't.
So, but what we're saying is that no matter what we attempt to do in the world, there's going to be people that are aggressive than others.
Just follow me for a second. Nature. Just follow the scenario. Just play along with me, okay? I shoot them. I shoot all 12 people. Do I own the place now?
No.
What do you mean no? Who's going to stop me?
There's only two ways to legitimately own something. It's through appropriation or voluntary exchange. It's
what do you mean legitimate? I own it now.
Okay, you can claim that you own something.
I do. I killed everybody here, and now I own it.
What is ownership, Alec?
Ownership is when I say I own something. I killed everybody here, and now I own the land.
Ownership is when you say you own something.
Yes. Who's going to stop me? Who's going to stop me?
I own you. I own you. I now legitimately own you because I said so.
If you hold me at gunpoint and there's nobody else to say that you don't own me, probably, yeah.
It's a terrible way of doing things.
Yes, it is, isn't it? It is a terrible way of doing things, isn't it?
What is the point of ownership, though? Like, what is the point?
Good point. Good question.
Yeah.
Who's enforcing the ownership?
What do you think ownership is?
Follow my scenario. I kill all 12 people there. Now do I own the land?
I'm trying to establish what you even think ownership is.
Okay, I'm getting to that. Do I own the land or not? That's my question.
No, you
Who's stopping me? Who stops me from owning the land? Who stops me?
I don't have to provide an enforcer to say that you don't own that land. It's obvious. Like if you
I don't have to provide an enforcer. I own it. I said that I killed everybody here. What's stopping me?
I mean, in this case, nothing is stopping you from saying that.
So I own it.
You actually own
so I own it. You gonna tell me I don't?
You can say you own it. That's not the point of ownership.
Yes. Bro. Okay, you come in and you say you don't own this land. Now what?
I have a right to remove you from it.
You have the right to remove me. How are you going to do that?
You showed through your actions that you do not believe people have a right to bodily autonomy.
Okay, so you come in, and you say you don't own this land. And I say, yes, I do. And you say, no, you don't. And then you try to remove me. How do you go about removing me from the land? Go ahead.
I threaten you with force.
You threaten me with force, such as?
I point a gun at you.
You point a gun at me. I pull out my gun. Now we're both facing each other with guns drawn.
Great.
Okay. Do you shoot?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You shoot. Okay. So you shoot me. Good. Now I'm dead.
Great.
Now what?
I don't own the land.
Now you own the land?
I don't. You
That's don't? Okay. Who owns it?
Obviously, whatever like the closest relatives or like however like the social norms are in that area.
Okay, so you give it to their closest relatives. How do you decide that?
How do I decide who someone's closest relatives
are?
Yeah,
go find them. How do you find them?
How do I find them? Obviously, these people don't exist in a vacuum. Like, there's gonna be people in the surrounding area who know who they are. Like, I would
Okay.
probably ask, like, "Oh, have you seen?"
I've
like,
shot all
Bob
of their
have any
family members. I've shot all of their immediate family members. They showed up looking for the people who are dead, and I shot them.
When we apply this level of absurdity to any situation, like
This is not absurd, man. This is your
that is
worldview.
absurd.
No, it's
You're
not.
saying one individual.
So
comes
all
into
you're
a town
saying
and
is
kills
that whoever
everybody.
has the biggest gun wins. That's your worldview.
You're the one saying that. I'm not. I
No,
don't
you
believe
said.
that
Okay,
means anything.
you are saying that. That's what Ancapistan is.
It is a fact of existence that people with more power often subjugate others and do terrible things. That doesn't
And I'm
mean
saying we should mitigate that, and you're saying we should enforce that.
yes. And your answer to that mitigation is by giving people a monopoly on violence. That's not a
No,
solution.
giving people a monopoly on resources.
Okay, I don't.
Because people who have what they need to survive, I got a little something to tell you. People who have what they need to survive do not commit violence nearly as often. They might, but they don't do it nearly as often. This is statistically backed.
Okay, but what is a monopoly? Because we're going back to this again. We still haven't defined it.
It's complete ownership over a certain resource. So if we have a monopoly of the proletariat or a monopoly of the people or whatever you want to call it, that means that it's collectively owned, and I'm fine with that. That's good.
Where did the term monopoly come from?
I don't know.
It came from like the 15th century in reference to crown protections for like crony businesses, right? Like they've always been created by the government. Okay. So I guess you like monopolies because they're created by the government, huh?
I like when monopolies are controlled by the majority. Yes.
Yeah. And what I mean, like obviously, like you still haven't been able to answer this. What happens when there's a monopoly on force? What happens to the minority?
If the majority has the monopoly of force, then that's. I mean, what would you prefer? That the minority have the monopoly of force?
I would prefer, like almost anybody, that there isn't monopolies because monopolies are bad and inefficient, and there's no recourse for consumers. Obviously.
How do you have not a monopoly of the like? How do you have not a monopoly if you don't consider like a monopoly of the collective a monopoly, or if you do consider that a monopoly? Sorry.
I mean, like you have different rights enforcement agencies. Like I think that like
but then they have the monopoly of force. How do they enforce their rule?
With weapons.
With weapons? Okay, so they have the monopoly of force then.
No.
No? How not?
Okay, if I'm living in Illinois and I have the choice between 4 different individual rights protection agencies, is there a monopoly in rights protection?
4 different agencies?
Yeah.
Are they at war with each other?
Why would they be? That'd be a really shitty rights defense agency.
Okay, so they're not at war with each other, so therefore they all agree with each other, so therefore they have the monopoly of force. Collectively. Among themselves. Right?
That's not monopoly, that's a cartel.
But this is just a monopoly with extra steps.
It's a monopoly with recourse. Like if one of these rights protection agencies...
What's the recourse? What's the recourse?
Let's say like I'm African American, I'm living in Illinois, and my rights protection agency is proven to respond to my calls like 10 minutes later. Or they spend like a lot of time like treating me like shit, like the police do. Like I could say, well, I don't want to work with you anymore, and I could just go sign up with a different agency that values me more and provides me better service.
What's their incentive to do that?
The person being shit on by this company?
No. What's the incentive of the other company to do that?
All right, like let's say I'm a business provider. I'm selling a service. I obviously want to provide a good service so people buy it.
No, you want to make money.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Yes, you want. No, you said I want to provide a good service. There's a difference between wanting to provide a good service and to make money. I can provide a shit service as long as I make money, right?
Well, let's think about this critically. People really love the Arizona tea guy, right? Like he could probably be selling his tea for a more expensive price. But he doesn't really care because there's other valuations. Like he likes that people.
He personally doesn't, but most people do. Most business owners do. That's why they price jack.
I would agree, like it's in some areas, but like Obviously there's people that would be involved in rights enforcement that don't have any profit motive. Like the Black Panthers weren't making any money off of forming these organizations.
Wait, there are people involved. Wait. There are people involved in rights enforcement that don't have any profit motive. How does this work in Ancapistan?
Maybe these people like have other jobs, or they live in a co-op or some other system where they have some free time, and they can like rotate. Like
You
let's
keep
say
saying
like
co-op. It just sounds like you're a left-wing anarchist.
I mean, I think you have to understand that like ANCAPs, we don't have any preference on how people choose to organize. That's the thing. Like the reason
Right,
why I'm not an
but what
ANCOM is I
happens?
don't have.
Okay, but what happens without like an overarching system of protection is that somebody comes in and dismantles like the smaller groups. Like that's always what happens. It turns into feudalism every time.
Turns into feudalism.
Yes.
I mean, first of all, I think this assumption that feudalism is bad is kind of unfounded.
Wait, you think feudalism's good?
I mean, if you look at like graphs of like violent deaths per capita and like you chart it back like into the Middle Ages, it's actually a lot lower because feudal lords like they didn't have the ability and the means to wage like total war like states do. I mean, what we saw in the 20th century with these conflicts was the state coming into its true form. I mean, that is something only state can do.
I would rather have a democratically elected state who has the monopoly of power than a feudal lord who has the monopoly of, or not even the monopoly of power, just like several feudal lords who are all skirmishing for power. Do you know what it was like to live during the feudal days?
Well, very few people do because peasants didn't really record.
But do you?
So, I mean, I've taken some classes of medieval history. I mean, we don't really know.
It was bad, right? We can agree it was bad.
In certain ways, yeah.
Okay, feudalism is bad, right?
In certain ways. I mean, as a government
in certain
system,
ways.
I don't.
Such as certain ways, like what?
Such as like you couldn't be like a minority religion in most places, like.
Such as if you get into a skirmish with another feudal lord, you die. You just or get permanently injured. That's what happens.
Let's think about the incentives for like if you're the president of a democracy, you're just in charge of the country for 4 years, and then you move on, right? Like you don't own the country, obviously. You just are the steward. So do you really care if the country gets shit on in a conflict? Not really. But if I own a country, I'm probably not going to want to go to war because I am directly affected by losing my things. Like these are my possessions. I have incentive.
But this is such a shallow way of viewing humanity, man.
But it's true,
the country's
Alex.
a possession. Are the people possessions too?
Look at the charts. Like there was less violence in the feudal period because they had an incentive not to waste things that they felt that they owned. I'm not saying
would you have wanted to live in the feudal era? Would you?
Would I have wanted?
Or would you rather live in our current era? I'm just curious.
I mean, I would rather live in our current era with like a feudalistic government structure because there was actually a decentralization of power. There wasn't a monopoly of violence. There was no states. Like we had peasants, they had their own.
So you get
courts.
drafted by your feudal lord. You get drafted. You say, "Hey, we're going to war." They say, "We're going to war with another feudal state." You're drafted.
That generally didn't happen very much, actually.
But it could, right? But it could.
I mean, it could in some instances.
Yeah, so at any point, your feudal lord could say you're drafted.
I mean, at any point, my government can say that.
They sure can because they have a monopoly of power. You're right. I am against the draft. But here's the beautiful part. We live in a democratic state. So I'm going to elect people who would not enforce a draft.
That's great. There's plenty of democracies that love drafts. Look at South Korea. They're a democracy. The people there.
Sure, I'm going to elect people who don't like drafts. I think that's more feasible under democracy than a feudal dictatorship.
I think it's completely absurd that we just pretend that the majority will magically come to the correct opinion all the time.
As opposed to an individual, right? As opposed to an individual.
I think when an individual makes decisions for themselves, it matters a lot less if they're correct. That's pretty intuitive. What? Like if I have a family and I say like, you know what, we don't need to eat anymore. Like that's obviously a lot worse if I just say I don't need to eat anymore. You know?
Hold on, I'm confused where you're going with this. What?
I'm saying I don't really like. I think that people make bad decisions all the time, but it's a lot worse to make decisions for other people and they turn out to be bad.
It's a lot worse to make decisions for other people And no, it's a democratic decision. We all make a unifying decision for ourselves. And if most of us don't want to go to war or be drafted, then we're going to democratically decide that we don't go to war or be drafted. And if we elect if we democratically elect a leader that says, "I will not draft you," and then he tries to draft people, I think that we should be able to kick him out.
But I mean, I'm glad that we both agree that war is bad, but like that's not always the case.
That's not my point. My point is you can be drafted at the drop of a hat in a feudal dictatorship.
You can
do you or do you not acknowledge that?
Do I or do I not? I mean, we have empirical evidence that conflict is a lot less common. Let me ask you this.
Are you more likely to be drafted in a feudal dictatorship, or are you more likely to be drafted in a democratic society?
Probably more likely in a democratic society.
So the people vote for a leader who wants to draft people for war. That's what you believe?
I mean, people vote, like, we already talked about this, but there's so many different policies and laws that a government decides on. Most people only vote on a couple of issues, Alec.
I understand that, but if you were let's say it's a policy prescription, like it's a policy issue. Like the policy is like the entire United States is voting. Do you believe the draft should be implemented? Yes or no? There's a very simple checkbox. Yes or no? Do you think most people are going to say yes, or most people are going to say no?
I don't understand why we would want to form a government that just appeals to the majority. That's an obvious fallacy.
I'm just asking you questions. Is it yes or no?
Right
Do
now,
most people want the draft or not?
Most people would say right now, probably not.
Okay, so do you think that a person who is a dictator, right, who can enforce a draft upon their own will and whim, who doesn't have to fight themselves, is more likely to enforce a draft than a democratically elected government?
Well, I mean, it just didn't happen in the Middle Ages. So, I mean, we can speculate all we want.
It happened all the time in the Middle Ages. What are you talking about?
Like, they would levy, like, troops, yeah.
The Middle Ages were fucking garbage to live in. Why would you want to live there?
Wait. I said very clearly my only claim was there was less conflict in the Middle Ages. I didn't say that, like, it was a great place to live.
I don't even think that's true. If you can provide me data on that, I would love to see it.
Okay. Pull it up for you.
While you pull that up, I'm going to go to the bathroom again. Sorry, I got a small bladder.
All right.
I'll be right back, guys. Okay, I'm back. You still pulling up that data?
Yeah, I'm still looking for it.
Okay, take your time. I'm very interested. Like, seriously, I'm not being sarcastic. Like, if that is true, I'd like to know the details. I just don't feel like in all honesty, that even if that is true, that's by happenstance. Like it's, I don't think that a feudal dictatorship would see more peaceful results than a democratic one. My only assumption can be like if that is somehow true by the numbers, that it's like a per capita thing.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say like it's not really like the smoking gun, really, but it is strictly per capita, sort of true. I'll send you the link in chat.
Okay, but like, so what are you saying, that you want to live in a feudal dictatorship?
No, 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 no. I'm just saying that like democracies, because people can actually identify with their government a lot more, because the government has a lot more like a lot more power and size than like traditional monarchies had, is that they're a lot more capable of waging war and justifying it.
Sure, but it's a matter of how much power we allow them to have rather than like the way that the power is attained. And what I'm saying is like right now, I agree with you. I will cede you that governments right now have way more power than they used to in terms of pure military force. Like we have the nuke, right? But like in terms of how that's in terms of democracy, right? The United States is like we don't have a draft right now. But if you live in a feudal dictatorship, there is a draft. At any point, they can just snap their fingers and go, "You're going to war," and I don't like that. And I don't think you like that
Well,
either. I'm not saying you like that, but
yeah.
that is the reality of a feudal dictatorship.
So I sent you the demographic. This accounts for like per capita.
Okay,
As you can see, let me make sure I get the dates right.
sure.
Around the 1600s, we start seeing a big spike in overall death rate, and then we start seeing it going up and down a lot more. And generally, most historians accept that's when the state kind of became a thing. Like centralized banks started developing, like centralized taxation started developing. The state started beginning entering into different areas of social and political life. And we can see like from that point going forward, like there is like moments where it is comparable to the pre like 1600s pre widespread states level of conflicts, but we can still see like obviously like even when we take out outliers like the First and Second World War, which I mean obviously those are kind of just very big examples of this, but you can still see the trend is that there is more and bigger conflict per capita with the states.
Okay. Well, according to this, we're living in the most peaceful time in human history right now.
I'm totally aware. Like right now, part of that is that we have all these defense structures in place, and like obviously it's kind of a one power world with the United States. But that's not going to be forever. There's going to be a big conflict at some point.
This is a matter of military might, though. Like we just have the capability to kill more people. But like back then,
Um,
we were still killing people, and like the deaths were more brutal, and you know, like it wasn't good back then either. Like you know, just because fewer people died, military
I
plus
mean,
civilian death rate.
well, one of the big reasons why we moved away from feudalism is that the state, because of its size and the fact it could exist in such a coercive manner, was able to fund weapons that like these smaller kingdoms couldn't fund. So like at that time, it would be like they might have cannons that the lords wouldn't be able to stop, and this would stop their walls, and it would basically make it so they established a monopoly of violence because they were able to levy more resources in the way of forcing people to do things basically. And if you have smaller communities, like obviously a lot of small countries like Switzerland could never make a nuclear weapon.
So what you're
So I
saying
mean,
is, so you're arguing in favor of smaller, spread out communities that can't monopolize power.
I think like that is the theory that a lot of anarcho-capitalists espouse. I mean, we're so far away from it that obviously that's a very long-term goal.
But that's
But
never going to happen.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we all have values and goals, right? I mean, that the important part about being any, like somebody who actually wants to change anything or has political opinions is you have to actually care about them, right? And like have long-term goals. I think that's pretty important.
But that's simply not gonna, like, I don't understand why you would want us like smaller, more spread out communities when you could just have one large community with people who all agree with each other on most things. Like, I don't understand.
Because small government's more responsive. You probably actually have a higher chance of knowing the people that are making decisions on your behalf. Obviously, there's a lot of regional differences between areas of the United States, and sending everybody to Washington and sort it out there, it doesn't work.
So why can't I
So
just
there's
make
people
my house my own government?
your house, your own government.
Yeah, like I'm the head of the household as the man, right? Like I have a wife and two kids and two dogs and a picket fence, and we are
Mhm.
our own country and our own government. What stopped me from doing that? And Kapistan,
Well, I think the Republic of Dave is a really good idea. So I mean, you could do that.
the Republic of Dave.
Yeah, it's a Fallout reference, but
Oh, I actually didn't know that. I actually just watched the Fallout movie,
yeah,
not the movie, the
yeah.
series. But yeah, I don't know anything about that. But you think that's fine that I do that?
I mean, I really don't think it would be good for like any household to like establish a hierarchy based off of gender and then shut itself off from the outside world.
Let's say
I,
that me and
I,
my wife rule equally.
I mean, I still would have a lot of reservations about your children,
Why is
but I mean,
that?
like you could do that. What?
I mean, I rule, right? I rule my land. It's my land. Anybody who comes on it has to abide by my laws. It's
Mhm.
my little square of paradise. Why can't I do that?
I mean, I think you totally have the rights to do so. I just personally, I don't know how I feel about that. It's like an
Why
idea.
not?
Like I said, you have the right to do so. I think that community is so important,
But
and or
you clearly have a problem with it. Why is that?
I have like an internal reservation about like just letting people atomize themselves to that extent. Like I don't think that's good for human
But
nature.
you said that smaller government is good.
Yes.
Smaller, more local
Yeah,
government. So I have the
yes.
smallest unit possible. What's
I
wrong?
don't. I mean, like I'm telling you, like I don't have an ethical issue with it. I just wouldn't find that a
But you
preferable
have
form
an
of
issue with it
socialization.
nonetheless. What's your issue?
I mean, I like in my personal judgment, I just don't think that's a good way to
Why not?
live.
Why?
Because you need a community.
A community. Okay, so how big should the community be?
However big people want it to be. I mean,
However big
it's
people
not
want.
like
So I want a
a
community of me
line.
and my neighbors. Me and my neighbors own a country. Is that good? Like me and my neighbors to the right. Just
Sure.
us. We own
I
a
mean, like I
country.
said,
That's
you can own
fine?
your own country.
Right,
I
but
guess
you
I
have
don't
a
really
problem
care.
with it. It's not a matter of can I do it or not. My issue my question is, do you have a problem with me and my neighbors to the right of my house, let's say the west of my house, owning our own country?
But the point of
Just us.
ethics isn't for me to impose my morality or like my personal opinions. It's to establish a universal system of how humans should interact. I'm not too into judging people for moral things. That's part of why I'm a libertarian. So,
But you
I mean, I
said
can't
that
even
smaller government is
articulate.
good and we need a
Yeah,
community. I have a community. My neighbors to the west. Their house.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I
Okay,
mean,
so that's
I
our
just,
community,
I
that's our
personally
government. Is
don't
that
value
good?
that. However.
Is that good?
I mean, it's permissible. I mean, it's not
It's
going to make a
permissible,
value
but you
judgment.
clearly think that there's something better. So what's better than that?
I think it would be preferable if people had like a town-sized community where they could have
Town
some division
sized,
of
you're getting
labor.
pretty big for me, man. Hold on a minute. I thought we were in favor of smaller governments that were more distinct from each other.
Okay, like if you want to live in a shack on like the outskirts of town and not interact with us and you don't get any
That's not what I
services, like
want,
that's
man.
fine.
That's what you want.
No.
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
the
You
best
keep saying, but like, do you understand my point here?
I understand what you're saying, but I think
Okay.
it's a misconception.
No, it's not a misconception. You literally said that you're fine with me doing that, but you have you have certain after a certain point, you clearly have a problem with the government being smaller than what you perceive it to be, like the size that it should be. So what's the smallest size that you think it should be, and why?
I mean, that I think it should be. I think it should be like a community size. That's about it.
Which is how
But
big? Give me like a ballpark number. 100
like I said,
people?
I don't know.
A thousand?
Maybe like
What do you mean you don't know? You've clearly thought about this.
I mean, I thought about it, but like I said, like I don't like to make value judgments about communities.
This isn't about a value judgment. This is about your like perfect slice of life. Like, what do you think is a perfect slice of life?
Oh, for me personally, like I would love in my own property to obviously be like in charge of my own property and then like
Okay.
still interact with other people. I wouldn't want to necessarily live in such a covenant
I'll
community.
interact with other people. I just own my land as a separate country.
Sure, that's how it should always be.
Okay, so I
Your
own my
land
land as a separate country, and I interact with other people, and we all get along peacefully, right?
yeah, that's great.
Okay,
Lovely.
so then I own my own country. My neighbor owns their own country. My neighbor to the west and east both own their own country. The neighbors across the street own their own country, right? And then one day, me and my neighbors across the street get into a fight. I say, hey, your lawn looks like shit. Clean it up. And they say, no, I don't want to clean it up. How can I fix that?
I mean, at this point, like we have a system, a legal system, obviously, of property ethics. I mean,
What do you
they
mean a
own
legal
that.
system? We're in
I mean, that's the
Ancapistan.
point of natural law.
No.
We
There's
have a
no legal system here. I own my own country, and so does the neighbors across the street.
Yes, you own your own property. They don't have a right to infringe your property.
But it's
just
my
like you don't have a
country.
right to infringe
And in
their
my
property.
country, the law of the land is you keep your grass 2 inches tall and no taller. They've made theirs 3 inches.
Right.
And I don't like
mean,
that.
You don't like that, but you're wrong to go aggress on their property, I guess. So,
Why?
I mean,
Who's going to stop me?
Ask them.
You see how we're looping around, right? We always come back to every time we get into a small squabble, we're going to aggress each other because that's our recourse, okay? In real life, we have homeowners associations. Huh?
That's the recourse if you don't have a system of private property.
What are you talking about? If I own, you said it's fine that I own my own country and the people across from me own theirs.
We know who owns the land, who has a right to use the land because.
What do you mean we know? What if I take it over? Who's stopping me? It's the same thing, man.
So at this point, like I could say, like, oh, let's imagine we live in this great world where everybody's peaceful and we work together in a direct democracy. But there's like a big bad fascist country in the world, and they spend all of their resources on weapons that their people don't even want, and then they attack us. Who's going to stop them? Like it doesn't actually address the ideal form of social organization.
Who's going to stop the United States?
Nobody. We are the evil
exactly.
people in the world.
Exactly.
We are the evil.
And I have a problem with that.
And you're happy with that. You
no,
have
I have a problem with that. No,
okay.
No. What? Hold on. I want a democratically elected system of government such that the monopoly of power is owned democratically. Because if most people decide what happens with the monopoly of power, the majority of people, the likely outcome is that it's not going to be used for bad. That's the likely outcome. And this is not a perfect system, mind you. I'm not saying this is perfect. I'm saying this is the best system we can produce.
That's why a majority of Americans and almost the entirety of the United States Congress was so in favor of invading all these Middle Eastern countries. Because the majority makes good decisions, right, Alec?
You're right. We should have protections for the minority. I believe in that.
Right, but we saw in the United States, even in our society that's designed to be gridlocked and not really make progress one way or another.
Well, the tides are turning. So
the tides are turning.
Yeah, the tide. If you're talking about like violence in the Middle East, the tides are turning against.
I'm glad public opinion shifted, but
yes.
that doesn't mean. I mean, that doesn't disprove what I'm saying. Is that like public?
But the alternative, okay, but the alternative is one person or a small group of select people are in charge of the monopoly of power. Why do I trust them over the majority?
The reality is there would be no monopoly of power in this situation because of the.
Yes, there would. Eventually, there would.
Relationship.
That's the inevitable outcome.
I don't believe that's inherent. If the inevitable outcome is that we have a state, I mean, your biggest offense is just that we live in the status quo again. So there's no downside. I mean, like think about it, Alec. If the worst outcome of anarcho-capitalism is that the state arises, I mean, what are we really arguing against?
Is that the state arises because we reset to feudalism?
What do you mean we reset to feudalism?
The biggest scum wins.
You think that people in power, like the most powerful people in medieval society, were they happy with feudalism?
I would imagine not, but they didn't have fucking a choice, did they? Like,
they did. That's why
bowed
they
to
got
their
rid of
feudal
it, Alex.
lords.
That's why they made the state. Like the people that made the philosophy for the state, like Hobbes, Locke, like these were powerful people, and
Let
powerful
me ask
people
you
read
this:
their shit.
how does one
Yeah.
uprise against a feudal lord?
How does one uprise? How does one uprise against any higher authority? You just
I'm asking. No,
stop
this is a real
listening.
question. How? Because you can, but how do you
Yeah,
revolt
and it
against a
happened.
feudal lord?
Well, usually the peasants would just stop working.
Ah,
Um,
so a union
yeah,
of sorts, right?
yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. So then this is This is not anarcho-capitalism. This is anarcho-communism.
I mean, I don't. I mean, I've read a lot of anarcho-communist thinkers. I definitely like. I like most anarcho-communists who are actual anarchists. But I mean, the difference is I don't think I have a right to interfere in other people if they choose to establish like a capitalistic like hierarchy. And like Malatesta or like other anarcho-communists will always say that they have a right to infringe upon voluntary interactions if they perceive it to be coercive. So
But
that's the difference, Alan.
a capitalistic hierarchy entails that you are forced to work at the threat of death.
Scarcity entails that. I mean, I think we still disagree on this point.
Okay. Yes,
Um,
you're right. The core of our disagreement is that you and I disagree that we live in a post-scarcity society. You're right. So can I prove
the
to you that we live in a post-scarcity society? Would you believe me if I proved that to you?
if you can prove to me that all humans could quit working, they could quit attempting to create food, and we would survive. I would accept that we could stop working.
Not
Sure.
all humans. I'm not saying all humans get to stop working. I'm saying we incentivize people to work.
Well, I mean, farmers fucking hate their jobs already, and we incentivize them to work, and they
How
still
do
have
we
the highest
incentivize
suicide
them?
rate. So,
How do
what?
we incentivize them?
I mean, like, do you know what crop insurance is?
Crop
Like the amount of
insurance?
subsidies that the farmers get is insane. It's one of the most subsidized industries in America.
they subsidize corn, and so we have a lot of
Yeah,
corn products. Imagine that.
like, you know what that leads to? Corn syrup. You know what that leads to? Obesity. That's what
Yeah,
happens when
so
you interfere with the
subsidize
free
other
market.
crops, incentivize other crops being grown.
They do. They incentivize all kinds of things. I'm just saying that, like,
But then
already
why
in
do
the
we have so
status
much
quo,
corn?
why do we have so much corn? Because they're subsidized to produce it. And well, now there's
Exactly.
actually
So
a demand
subsidize
for
the
it because of
others.
corn syrup. They do. They subsidize everything. I'm
What-
just telling you, it's a
You're not
subsidized
making sense,
industry.
man.
Yeah.
They've subsidized all of it. Then why do we have so much corn? They subsidize the corn more, right?
Oh, okay. I mean, like, I don't know the specifics of they subsidize. I'm not a farmer.
But
It
what
is
I'm
one of the most
telling you is
subsidized
we have
markets
so
in the
much
country.
corn syrup and corn fructose, whatever, like that because corn is
All
subsidized, right?
subsidies. Yeah, we agree
Right.
on that.
Right. Okay. So what I'm saying is spread out the subsidies, incentivize other crops to be grown. Does that make sense?
I mean, they already do. And the reality is that
No,
farmers
they
suck.
don't. Not nearly to the extent that
Yeah.
they do corn.
All right, I'm gonna Google it because I guess we're at that point.
It's not to, and historically, it's not to the extent that they've done corn. Corn has a very long and rich history of being subsidized.
You're right. You're right. It's
Okay.
one of the things that people care a fuck ton about
Yes.
in history.
So what you're saying is that's because of subsidies. So subsidize other crops, incentivize other crops. What's wrong with that?
I mean, they do to some extent.
Okay.
I mean,
They should do more.
what all I'm trying to illustrate is that we're already attempting to incentivize farming in general more than any other sector of the economy. Almost, I mean, maybe not fossil fuels, but
Yeah, and
we
we have
do a lot of
a surplus of food.
yeah, and that's because of the
Yes.
subsidies. But even still,
Yes.
there people don't want to be farmers,
So
even
wait,
with
you
all these
agree that we
subsidies.
have a surplus of food, right?
Yes, because people are working
Okay.
to produce the food.
So that's telling you that we're post scarcity.
Okay, I'm going to define scarcity like in the way that it's defined in economics. It's defined almost anywhere. Scarcity is the fact that there is finite means and like infinite wants, right? So I mean, like we can have infinite desires, right, Alec? Like we can make a list like a million points long if we really sat down and thought about all the things that we want and all the things that we might need. And the reality is, if everybody actually went down their list and attempted to do all this stuff, they wouldn't be able to actually fulfill all of those needs and wants. So that's what scarcity is. We do not live in a post-scarcity world. You could say there is enough like food for everybody in the world. I could buy that, but like like it still has to be transported to people. It still has to be produced. There's still an opportunity cost to making the food. So we don't live in post scarcity, Alec. That's obvious.
According to the World Food Program USA, it would cost $40 billion each year to end world hunger by 2030.
Yeah, that's great. But
So yeah,
that
I
doesn't
would
mean
say
that like
that's
we just have infinite food, Alec. That means that we're subsidizing like farmers in developing countries, that we're creating infrastructure, we're incentivizing businesses to donate food they already have, to quit misusing food, because some businesses still do that. A lot of businesses don't, by the way. But like that doesn't just mean we have infinite food. There's still people working for the food. We are just working with the market to
yes, we
create
should
more for
incentivize the
good.
work, not
Yes,
hold
but
their lives over their
it's,
heads. That's
it's
what you
still
want.
scarcity though, Alec. That's the point. That we don't live in
That's
post
not
scarcity.
scarcity. No, if you can end world hunger in a matter of 6 years, which is what this article is telling me from the World Food Program USA, if you don't believe that, that's fine. But if you can end world hunger in 6 years, I'd call that post scarcity. It's $40 billion a year. That's $240 billion. That's like a fucking penny to the government.
I mean, what is the plan? How would we end world hunger?
It's a good question. I don't have the exact answer to that.
Because
Let's see.
most development economists would just say like we just give money to states in like Africa and other countries, and like we send them advisors to teach them how to do things. That's usually the answer. And we've been trying that for decades, and it hasn't really worked. So
You can feed 2 hungry people a day for just $1. Every person is able to fill their plate and reach their full potential has a positive ripple effect on the well-being of their families, their communities, and their nation. So, like, yeah, I don't understand. Like, if we can feed all the hungry people in the world, I feel like that's post scarcity, like by definition.
just because we are feeding them doesn't mean that the food is like infinite. Like we still have to work for it. We still have to sacrifice other
Yes, so
items
incentivize
to
them.
achieve it. Yeah, yeah, I agree. But
Yeah,
I mean,
you
I'm just saying
agree.
that it's not post
Incentivize them
scarcity.
because they'll die if they don't, right?
I think that any economic system can figure out how to supply basic needs to people. Yes,
By threatening them
and
with
that's
death.
important.
By
And
threatening them with
capitalism does
death.
that. There's nobody
Yes,
starving to death in
capitalism does that. You're
America.
right. Capitalism does that. Good point. That's why I'm
No,
an
no, no,
anti-capitalist.
no, no. Capitalism in America, there's nobody dying of starvation here.
What?
Like there might be people who are malnourished that like are have bad food access. Like yes, that exists, but like there's nobody like literally dying of starvation in this country. Like, there's options.
44 million people in the United States are food insecure.
Yeah, yeah,
13
you're right.
million children in the United States are food insecure. 49
Millions of them.
million people turned to food programs in 2022. 100% of
So
U.S.
true.
counties have food insecurity.
How many people literally died of starvation?
Is it a matter of death
I mean, like it makes
for
things
you?
worse. I mean, totally agree.
What if they're emaciated?
Emaciated. I'm not sure.
Their ribs showing. Is it fine if they're just starving to death? Like in the process of starving to death, they haven't quite died yet, right? That's fine, right?
Obviously, that's very bad.
44 million people in the U.S. face hunger, including 1 in 5 children. Is that okay?
No, it's really not.
No, it's not. We live in a capitalist society. Why is that happening?
With children in particular, I think it's just hard to get children food. They can't like obviously like
Would you
function on
guarantee
their own in
children food in your
society. So
society?
I mean, I don't think that you can have such a thing as a positive, right?
Yes, you
I like
can.
to think that I like to think that
Our
people would
prospective vice
supply food.
president, our prospective vice president guaranteed food to people in his state.
That's great.
Sorry, food to children in his state.
Yeah.
Guaranteed it.
Yeah, but there's still an opportunity cost. Like he's still sacrificing
What's
other
the
resources
cost of
to do
feeding a
that.
child?
What is
What's
the
too
cost of
much?
feeding a child?
What's too much? $10,
I
20?
mean,
What's too
probably costs
much?
like $2. Like, probably like $2 or $3 to
Two or
feed
three
somebody's
dollars?
schooling.
No, I'm asking you, what's too much?
What's too much? I don't know. I think children
You
should be
don't know
fed. Like,
because feeding a child is essential, right?
yeah, totally agree.
Yes, no matter the cost. So we feed the children, right? In your society?
Yeah, I think charities would. I
No,
mean,
no,
it's
no.
proven
Not
lower
charities
taxes mean
would.
more charities.
This is a matter of would you do it?
Would I feed children? Yes,
You
I would
set up
feed children.
society. Are the children fed?
Yeah,
Yes or no?
I set up society. Are
By
the children fed?
by mandate of your holy law, are children fed in your society? You're a dictator.
By the non-aggression principle, they're not, and that's really the only way you
They're
can
not.
organize
So you would
society.
let children starve in your society, right?
I don't think so. I mean, there's plenty of
What do you mean you
examples.
don't think so? Are they fed or not?
I mean,
Take a
like, okay,
position.
before the state existed and collected taxes and did all these things in an involuntary manner, there was already social organizations that existed and provided services for people. Like
This
if
is a
you
very
were,
simple question. Do children eat in your society?
yeah, obviously,
Free of charge?
yeah, charities always.
Okay. No, not charities. You provide it, right? Somebody provides it.
Yeah, somebody always
Somebody is
provides everything.
required to provide, not charities, because charities aren't required to provide anything.
Oh,
They're
governments aren't either.
charities,
So
huh?
yeah. Governments are not required to provide anything either.
They are by mandate of the people who elected them into office. In
Yeah,
my ideal
well,
society, the people who are elected into office can have that ripped away from them at a moment's notice. That's
you
my
know what, Alec,
society.
if like 70% of people in America were like you, I would probably say like, you know what? I like this. Let's start changing how we look at politics. But
So you
that's not
like
how
my
it works.
worldview, right?
Yeah, I think
That's
it's
what
a
you're
good
saying?
idea.
Okay, yes. So children eat. Period. End of story. Children eat. And I am going to mandate that no matter what it takes. Would
I
you?
don't think that your worldview actually has like first of all, I think it's unethical. I also
Why
don't
is it
think that like
unethical?
it has a
Children eat?
sense.
What's okay? Give me a scenario where a children eats and that's unethical.
All right, let's say I mean if a child walks up to me for food, I think I have a positive obligation to give them food.
Okay.
Because they're not like a full moral actor. They obviously can't take care of themselves. So yeah, I have an obligation to. But if
Okay.
like a tax man comes and walks up to me and says, "We're going to collect taxes from you by force. If you don't accept, we're going to kill you." Basically, that's what happens if you don't pay taxes. Um,
What does this have to do with
yeah.
the children eating?
So then the tax man takes my money and gives it to the child. Do I think that's the right way to do it? No.
Yes,
Um,
I do. Children
if the
eat.
right way is
You
great.
eat too.
I mean,
You eat too. You're not deprived of food. But if you have excess money and the child has no food, and the only way to give that child food is to rip the money away from you, I'm taking that fucking money one way or another, man.
I mean,
That's my
that's
worldview.
it's a real great view of human nature that like there would just be tax collectors that are just altruistic and just allocate
You just don't
resources.
think
And
children should eat.
obviously, I care a lot about children.
Okay, do you care enough to rip the money from somebody who doesn't need it?
Would I personally do that? Yes. Is it ethical?
You
No.
would? It's not. Wait, why would you personally do it if it's not ethical? Do you believe in ethical systems? Do you believe that you
People
should be
don't.
ethical?
People like we can
Why would you
espouse or we
personally?
can.
Why are you admitting that you would personally do something that you personally find unethical? What pussy shit
Uh,
is that?
like first of all, the non-aggression principle is a legal system and legal philosophy. So like I could believe in that, and we should always espouse and like attempt to create a society in that way. But like human action doesn't work in the way that like there's just one value that's like universally always above all others.
Like
Like
children
people are
eating?
complicated, situations are nuanced. Human actors see things differently.
What's nuanced about a
Um,
child starving?
I mean, like it's nuanced as in any situation I'm in. Like my first thought isn't always going to be doing what is like technically legally correct. Like I'm saying that like
But you
in the
said that
moment,
you would you
yes,
personally
I would.
would by force take somebody's money that they don't need and give it to a child so that they can eat. Yes?
I would. But that
So
doesn't make it
clearly
right.
in some sense or another, you believe that's ethical. Either that or you believe that you would act irrationally in that circumstance.
I mean, first of all human action is rational. Um,
All human action is rational, then you're acting rationally according to you. So you're
I
acting
mean,
rationally against your own moral principles in order to make sure a child eats. Yes?
I think that
Yes?
you can have principles in life. They don't decide every action you take in.
What the
And
fuck are
there's
you talking about? What is your
like
moral principle on child eating?
you could say like if you're a utilitarian.
Dude, you're not
Like
making any sense. You're not
I'm
making
trying to
a
explain it to
shit
you.
ton of sense, okay? You're not a shit lick of sense at all.
Like,
do
if
you
you're a
think
moral
it's
actor,
ethical to take somebody's money that they don't need and give it to a child that does need it?
No.
No? Then you would let the child starve.
That's
That's
not
your
what that means.
at least you're consistent. If that's your ethical principle and you would not take that money, at least you're consistent.
False.
I still think you're
Well,
a
I mean,
shitty
like,
person, but at least you're consistent.
I think it's completely unethical to do that. I would still do that though. There's actions we do all the time that are
Why?
not legitimate.
Why would you personally do it?
Because I value the child being fed more than I value the legal system. That's
Then
obvious.
your ethical system is that that child should eat regardless of the consequences that the person who has more money than they need take. Yes?
That's not my ethical system. That's my
Dude, you're
personal
making
evaluation.
shit. You're not making any sense at all. You are spineless. You are completely spineless. You have no moral principles.
What?
Do you believe? I don't understand where you're coming from.
Okay, there's a universal law that you should not aggress upon other people.
What universal law? Who enforces it? God?
The non-aggression axiom. We know this because
The Non-Aggression Act. What does that mean? Who enforces the Non-Aggression Act? Who enforces it in Ancapistan?
rights enforcement, other people, yourself.
Other people?
Yeah.
So other people decide that you don't get to take money from that person who has more than they need to give to the child. Is that correct? And therefore you won't do it?
They would say that's wrong.
I would say that's wrong. So it's not your moral principle. It's the moral principle of other people that you're answering to.
I mean, my belief is that like an ethical system is universal. I don't always make decisions that
You don't
align with
have
the
moral
ethical
beliefs,
system.
man. You're already
I don't have
saying
moral
you are
beliefs. You're
sitting here
right. I
telling
have
me.
ethical ones.
No, you're sitting here telling me that you don't even follow your own moral principles. What the fuck is that shit?
Does.
What do you mean nobody
It's
does?
pretty obvious, like we can have goals and we can have like values and like frameworks to view how society should be structured.
I follow my moral principles.
there's-
I follow mine.
Okay, so you think people should be so ideologically possessed that they should just act according to their moral principles in every single situation, have no other evaluations in life?
I believe in the vacuum
other
situation in which a
interpretation.
child is starving and you are faced with somebody who has more money than they need, you take the money from that and you don't have any money to your name. You take the money from that person and give it to the starving child. Yes.
I would do that. Is it justified? Is it like a legitimate use of
You
force?
think it's justified because you would do it. Why would you do it if it's not justified?
No. People do wrong things all the time. People acknowledge theft is wrong and still commit crimes. Like, it's obvious.
It's not a matter of it being a crime. A crime has to do with legality.
Do you genuinely believe like that people always act the way that they think they should act, like morally?
No, no,
Exactly.
That's not my
I'm just saying, we're
point.
human.
My point is this is a hypothetical, and you're saying in this hypothetical, yes, you would steal money to give to the starving child, but you still think that's wrong. Why would you, in a hypothetical situation that I'm posing to you, do something that you personally believe is wrong?
Okay,
you don't have to.
Is wrong. I mean,
you could say, "Hey, let the child starve."
Huh? It's wrong. It's wrong.
What's wrong?
Is that universally wrong? No. Is it a right that the child is fed? No.
Dude,
but I would act in that way.
Dude, where do you stand on the moral principle of feeding children?
I think it's an obligation of individuals to do it. I don't think that can be universally applied.
So then it's the obligation of the person who has way too much money to feed a starving child, right? If they're the only one that can do it.
I mean, yes, they should act in that way. I don't have a right to impose them to act that way. That's a personal evaluation.
They're not doing it.
They're not doing it? I mean, that's sad.
What do you mean that's sad? Oh, that's sad the child died. You had a chance to make sure the child didn't die, but you're not going to do it?
We went around and just stole things from people all the time and thought it was legitimate because we knew how to use it better. I mean, that's the end of that. It's just...
If somebody's saying that child is fine to die as long as I can own my yacht, yes. I believe that I know better than that person. Yes.
In any legal system, there's going to be moments when people do what they think is right, even if it's against the legal system. That's obvious. I mean, I think what I'm saying, I mean, I understand that you think it's like spineless, whatever. I mean, it's just true. Like, people...
I believe in imposing violence. I believe in imposing violence if it means a child doesn't die. Yes. I believe in that.
In opposing violence if it means a child doesn't die.
In this circumstance, yes. I'm sure that you could give me a out of left field circumstance in which, yes, it's preferable that a child dies. I'm sure you could give me that. But in this circumstance, huh?
In a real privatized society, I don't think the child would be starving. That's all I have to say about it.
I just don't. We live in a privatized society already, man.
Do we? So true?
Yes. This is the same argument that you accuse socialists of making, I'm sure, where it's like there was never any real socialism or communism. There was never any real capitalism, right?
In this entire conversation, I don't think I've gone in depth at all about current quote-unquote communist states.
But you just almost did. You're like, listen, in my ideal society where everything's privately owned, this wouldn't happen in the first place. How would this not happen in the first place?
I mean, there's a lot of studies that show that when there's less taxation, there's more charity. As I was telling you earlier about like the medieval ages before the state was formed, there was private charities that performed all of these social services, like the church.
I don't care. I don't give a shit. If it's not legally enforced, then I like it's not going to be a guarantee for the child. It should be a guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, a right has to be universally guaranteeable. You can never have a universal guarantee to food.
Yes, I guess you have a right to food. Here. You have a right to food.
You can't have a right to something if it's not universally applicable.
It is universally applicable.
Let's say we're both on a desert island. There's one coconut. We
don't live on a world with one. We don't live on an island with one coconut, man. Oh, okay. If we did, we would fight to the death over it.
I entertained your analogy earlier, but I guess we can't.
Yes. No, I know you are. Okay, but in a world where we have a plethora of coconuts for everybody.
Yeah.
Because in my scenario, there was enough coconuts for both of us to last quite a long time. Yes. That was my scenario. But I said you don't get any unless you suck my dick. Are you gonna suck my dick?
I mean, I don't know if that's your scenario, but like you did take it from somewhere, yes.
That was my scenario. It's not mine. I didn't come up with it.
Yeah.
But it was my scenario that I posed to you.
Yeah.
So do you suck my dick or not?
I mean, that's a scenario. I mean, obviously people do, but I mean,
yes, people do because they have to live. Do you think that's fair?
Doesn't actually.
Do you think that's fair?
It doesn't disprove voluntary exchange. That's all I'm saying about that.
Do you think it's fair or not?
Do I think the situation you're posing when there is a natural monopoly on a good that has never occurred in the free market, and somebody has to suck a dick for it? I mean, yeah, I don't know. Probably not.
What do you mean you don't know? Take a stance. Is it fair or not?
I would say it's probably not fair.
The alternative is you die. You suck a dick or you die.
I mean, at that point, it's still human action.
Would you do it?
Well, I just said it wasn't fair.
Yes, exactly. It's not fair.
We don't have actual monopolies in the real world, so except for the government. So sad.
It's not a matter of it being. You have to work or you have to die. That's your choices in our current society.
Other things being equal, I mean, obviously, you need work to live. We've already established this. Like, yes, there's a surplus. People have to work to make food. So
there's a surplus, and therefore there's a surplus, and therefore everybody should be fed. Distribute the fucking food. Do you think it's fair that a few people get to hoard the food while others starve? Do you think that's fair?
Who's hoarding the food?
What do you mean hoarding the food? The grocery stores hoard it. They throw it away in dumpsters and then tell homeless people they can't go get it. That's hoarding.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Yes, it's wrong. We both agree that's wrong. So you would agree with government action that opposes that, right?
No.
Why not?
So I don't think you have to force people to solve these issues. Like I said,
do those people deserve to eat?
There's plenty of examples throughout. I mean, first of all, I've already conceded to you like a long time ago.
Dude.
I mean, I've always held this belief that people could create their own smaller countries, kind of. And, like they could legislate this. They could make sure everybody eats.
Back up. What? I'm asking you. The grocery stores throw away food that they prevent homeless people from accessing. Is that fair or not? It's fresh food.
It's not fair.
It's not fair. So do you agree with hold on. Do you agree with the government enforcing grocery stores to give that food to homeless people? Yes or no?
No, I don't.
Why not?
So I don't think the government's a legitimate
because you don't believe in a fair society, right?
I mean, you're a consequentialist.
You don't believe in a fair society. Just say it. I don't. Repeat after me. I do not believe in a fair society. Repeat after me. Go ahead.
I believe in a society where everybody.
I do not believe in a fair society. Say it.
You believe in a society where certain people, because the majority wills it, which is an obvious fallacy.
You just said that it's not fair that they do that, and yet you would let them do that. So you don't believe in a fair society. Right?
I mean, like not everything is going to be viewed as subjectively fair to us. I mean, they purchase the good, they own the good, and I think it's fair they throw it
If
away
you
what they want. I
if you
mean,
were
if there's
dictator,
people that are
if
hungry,
hold on, if you were made dictator of the world tomorrow, would you make it so that grocery stores give that food to homeless people? Yes or no?
if I was made dictator of the world tomorrow,
Yes.
I'd probably just destroy the government, if you ask me.
No, no, no. I'm asking in this specific circumstance. Somebody comes to you, says, "Hey, we have this situation where grocery stores are throwing away fresh food and homeless people are trying to get to it, and they shoot those homeless people dead."
I mean,
Would you enforce them to stop shooting those homeless people and give them the food?
another great thing is actually a lot of grocery stores on their own have come to the
You're
conclusion
not
that they
answering
should
the
just donate
question.
food.
You're not answering the question. Answer the
I don't
question.
need
Yes or
to.
no?
I don't need to force people to do this. It's
What
pretty
are you talking
obvious.
about? Yes, you do.
I say it's unfair. Like I can make a value judgment. I don't have the right to initiate force against them for it.
Why not? Do you
It's
want people to
obvious.
starve? You're king
No,
of
I
the world.
don't. I mean, I would. I mean, I haven't
You
said
don't want
like
people
that
to starve, so you would do
bad
it.
to happen to people.
You don't want people to starve, so you would do it. You would enforce that, right?
No, I wouldn't. I think there's
Okay, so
other
you do want
answers.
people to starve.
Obviously not.
Okay, so then you would enforce it.
Throughout this conversation,
Then you
have
would
you
enforce
sensed I
it,
have
right?
any
Then you would
disregard for
enforce
people?
them to give them the food, right? So that people don't starve, right?
No, I don't have a right
So
to
then
force
you do
people to
want
do
people to
things.
starve, right?
And no,
This is what I'm
there's no
talking
mutually.
about. You are
That's a false
spineless.
dichotomy.
You are a spineless
Wow.
piece of shit. You can't stand by any of your fucking values, man. None.
I'm not. I'm not really getting upset with you at all. It's a false
I'm
dichotomy.
getting very upset with you because you have no values. You haven't thought about this shit for more than 10 minutes. If
I mean,
that.
obviously, I believe in the ethics. I don't have like I don't like to impose
The
value
ethics,
judgments on
my
people.
ass, dude. Go. Okay, goodbye.
All right. Nice conversation.
Dude, it's so stupid. It's like, come on. I just. Think about it for 2 seconds. Ugh. I don't know what to say. I really don't. Like, there's no values there. There's zero values. There's no way he wasn't a troll. No, I believe that he believed everything that he said. It's crazy. Like, people exist like this. I can't believe that lasted as long as it did. NB Pal says hi, Katie. Debate me next. Can I join and sim for 5 minutes? Sure. It's so like, I'm not that smart. I'm really not. And like, I just feel like all you have to do is hold to a position. I'm sorry. It's just so funny. Like, how do you end up like that? Main thing that got me about him was the taxes because he wouldn't be. I don't think, by the way, I don't think that he's a bad person. I just think that he hasn't actually sat down to think about his shit. An economics student, exactly. Are you hungry? Kind of hungry. But it's late. Are you sober? You get McDonald's, or we could order in. We could get whatever. Get him, Bubba. Get her. Right. Good. They're fighting. Get him. Hey, baby girl. It was a very goofy debate. They were 18 years. No, they were 20 and new to politics. Yes.
To be 20.
Oh yeah, I gotta stop recording. Huh? I just said I gotta stop recording.
Ah.
I'm responding to their DM.
While I was napping. And all he wanted. Hi guys, sorry, this is random. I've been napping all day. It was the first week of school, so I'm a little tired. But while I was napping, and I took a very long nap, while I was napping, I had a dream about Matt Mercer. If you know Matt Mercer of Critical Role, many other projects. He's done so much. I admire him greatly. I dreamed that for whatever reason, he ended up in my house, and during the dream, he told me that all he wanted was to be able to go to the original Pancake House, but he couldn't because it was always closed whenever he went. So, Matt Mercer, if you're out there and you really want to go to the original Pancake House, there's a whole bunch in Ohio, actually. So if you go to a con in some of the bigger cities, you'll probably be able to find an original Pancake House somewhere. Somebody tell him. Oh, Lord.
You can tell him next time we see him at a convention.
I'll cry.
Mm-hmm. See. He said, just to clarify, all ancaps will say that value is totally subjective. I think do share a lot of values. I just do not have a right to enforce them. I appreciate the conversation. However, I think we agree on a lot of things. I'm saying I think we do too, and I don't think you are a particularly bad person. I just don't think you've actually sat down to think about your values. I was frustrated that you couldn't seem to take a stance on very simple hypotheticals and back this stance up with anything substantive. Oh my god, they're fighting again. Hold on. See if I can catch this. Get her, Bubba. That. Get her. You guys seeing this? Indeed, battle of the century. Okay. If you believe something is right, you should reinforce it. I'll leave it at that. I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't think that he's a bad person. I want to make that clear. I don't think that the guy that I debated with is a bad guy. I don't want anybody to shit on him. Like, besides for being a little stupid. I think it was kind of stupid. But, like, I don't think he's evil. I'm just like, have you actually thought about what you believe? Like, really? It just didn't make any sense to me. Like, if you think... Okay, so the grocery store is not required to give food... Every time they stop doing it as soon as I try to catch it. You have to concede sometimes and use that concession to push your argument further. People need to understand that they can be wrong sometimes. He's new to politics and hasn't thought through their ideas yet. That's what I think. He just ain't got the medal for mental development for thinking through the consequences and what it produces. I think that too. The mental development. Oh, hi, bub. Being so cute. See him, you can just see my mom. Oh well. Hey girl. Who's a good girl? He had no base from the beginning. I'm actually surprised it took so long for you to finish. I was tempted to end earlier. Okay, goodbye, man. I was tempted to end earlier, but like we kept going in circles, but like I don't know. I really don't think that I'm that smart politically. I don't. But like even I can work my way through an Ancapistan. Cannot wait to watch that segment. It was funny. Kind of want to watch the end of it. We debated him for like 2 hours. It was fun. I had a lot of fun. I told him, thanks a lot for coming on. I didn't end out of anger, just frustration that we weren't getting anywhere.
Would I personally do that? Yes. Is it
Do not believe in a...
solve these issues? Like I said,
do those people deserve to eat?
There's plenty of examples throughout. I mean, first of all, I've already like conceded to you like a long time ago.
Dude.
I mean, I've always held this belief that people could create their own smaller countries, kind of. Like they could legislate this. They could make
back
sure.
Back up. What? I'm asking you. The grocery stores throw away food that they prevent homeless people from accessing. Is that fair or not? It's fresh food. This is the crux of the argument right here.
It's not fair.
It's not fair. So do you agree with the... Hold on. Do you agree with the government enforcing grocery stores to give that food to homeless people? Yes or no?
No, I don't.
Why not?
So I don't think the government's a legitimate
because
actor.
You don't believe in a fair society, right?
I mean, you're a consequentialist.
You don't believe in a fair society. Just say it. I don't say. Repeat after me. I do not believe in a fair society. Repeat after me. Go ahead.
I believe in a society where everybody.
I do not believe in a fair society. Say it.
You believe in a society where certain people, because the majority wills it,
so
which
hard.
Is an obvious fallacy.
You just said that it's not fair that they do that, and yet you would let them do that. So you don't believe in a fair society. Right?
I mean, life, like, not everything is going to be viewed as subjectively fair to us. I mean, they purchase the good, they own the good, and I think it's fair they throw it away what they want. I mean,
if you were dictator, hold on, if you were made dictator of the world tomorrow, would you make it so that grocery stores give that food to homeless people? Yes or no? This was the best part of the whole discussion.
Dictator of the world tomorrow, yes. I'd probably just destroy the government, if you ask me.
No. I'm asking in this specific circumstance. Somebody comes to you and says, hey, we have this situation where grocery stores are throwing away fresh food and homeless people are trying to get to it, and they shoot those homeless people dead.
I mean,
would you enforce them to stop shooting those homeless people and give them the food?
Another great thing is actually a lot of grocery stores on their own have come to the conclusion.
You're not answering the question. You're not answering the question. Answer the question. Yes or no?
I don't need to force people to do this.
What are you talking about? Yes, you do.
I can say it's unfair. Like, I can make a value judgment.
Sorry,
I don't have the right to initiate force.
It was so funny. Why not? Do you want people to starve? You're king of the world.
I mean, I haven't.
You don't want people to starve, so you would do it. You don't want people to starve, so you would do it. You would enforce that, right?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, so you do want people to starve.
Obviously not.
Okay, so then you would enforce it.
This conversation.
Then you would enforce it, right? You would enforce them to give them the food, right? So that people don't starve, right?
No, I don't have a right.
So then you do want people to starve, right?
No.
This is what I'm talking about. You are spineless. You are a spineless piece of shit. You can't stand by any of your fucking values, man. None. Oh my God.
I'm not really getting upset with you at all.
I'm getting very upset with you because you have no values. You haven't thought about this shit for more than 10 minutes. If that.
I mean, obviously, I believe in the ethic.
Okay, that's enough. I'm sorry. I had to look at it again. It's sorry. I was laughing that entire time. Cracks Knuckles, I'm going to convince you that motorcycles in current America's car-centric system are great. Yeah, I don't know if you'll be able to do that. Sorry, I think you guys missed my laughter. I was laughing so fucking hard. It was just so funny. Like, it's comical. Anyway. I do have to end here, but it doesn't mean we're done. Because guess what? Stream doesn't end here. If you go to the Discord server, we're going to do movie night. That's right. Movie night. We're going to watch a bad Christian movie together as a group, and I'm going to commentate over it. That's right. In a legal sense. Isn't that amazing? So you can go to the Discord server right now and join the movie night voice channel. And we're going to get started with the movie. Discord link, exclamation Discord in the site chat, or you can go to the, if you're in YouTube chat, you can go to the YouTube link, which is in the description below. What movie? I'll bring alcohol. I don't know yet. There's a couple that people have suggested. Let me see. Movie night suggestions. You know what? I think that we'll vote on it. We'll make it an executive decision when we start the movie. Like when I get off of here and we go into the channel. So if you want to join us for a movie night, go to the Discord server and join the movie night voice channel. There are already people going in there. You will notice that there is no voice allowed in there. Only I am allowed to speak in the movie night channel. You can go to the open chat, which is available. Like, it's the open chat that's right next to the movie night text. If you go to open chat and click on that, you can text and it'll be just like chat. And I will be in there momentarily. But first, I got to get food. I got to figure out a food situation. And then I have to...
fame, power.
Velocipaster?
Velocipaster. Ooh, that sounds like a good one. Yeah, if you suggest that in movie night suggestions, I may look at that. There are a bunch of the people that said, thank you so much for another 5-tier go on gifted subs, Sakaniki. I appreciate you very much. All right. I'll meet you guys in there. Let me figure out a food situation real quick, and then I'll get in there very quickly, and we'll figure out what we're doing for the movie. If you're not interested in movie night, or you don't have Discord, or you don't want to get on Discord, that's fine. I will drop you guys off with somebody else. Who's live? Riverboat Jack? Is Riverboat Jack still alive? Riverboat Jack is in fact still live. We will drop you guys off with Riverboat Jack. So let me do that. All right. Oh, hold on. I gotta do it on YouTube too. Hold on. Okay, live. Customization. Redirect. Riverboat Jack. Save. Okay. You will redirect to Riverboat Jack. If you would like to join us in the Discord server, please come join us for movie night. If not, I will see you guys sometime next week. I had a great time today. I hope you guys had a great time as well. We had a fun little debate. And yeah. I'll see you guys for movie night. Or you can go enjoy Riverboat Jack's stream. That's also valid. All right. Love you all. Take care, everybody. See you next week.